001 demo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a little
Compressed.
MP3 compressed. Yeah.
That's because I use the AI whatever mastering plugin thing that I'm using.
Walk on the front line, shine on the warning signs, stand on a landmine. That's where you draw the line. It's chemical, not logical.
Going for the Thornley compression.
Now you know you're the reason that she left and cut her hair. Now she's gone, and you lie and say that life just isn't fair.
There we go. All right, I'll get us up and running because we're here. Because I can't hear Chicago if I play my normal tunage.
Right.
Where are you? You are on the thing with the thing. Is it Johnny Million? There he is. Hey, it's Johnny Million. Yeah, the show's starting. And I got to go live on.
60 seconds, guys.
All right, 60 seconds. Whenever he says 60 seconds, it reminds me of that scene in LA Story. Where he's like, 60 seconds right before his news broadcast, and it's clear he does not give a crap. It's like, 60 seconds, and he goes back to doing what he's doing, and the whole this week we got sun, and his watch gets stuck. He's like, turn off the magnet. Turn off the magnet, and he takes his watch off and just leaves it there.
I just saw that movie, and I don't remember any of that.
That's the stuff with Woody Harrelson as his boss, Like, you're doing some sort of intellectual thing. Intellectual? This is an intellectual free zone. You think it's intellectual because you were educated with a banana and an inner tube.
Wow.
Sounds like
it's so. Thank
LA
you.
Story.
It's so good. I find it a heartbreaking movie, though. It's so beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Man, I got to tell you, I feel so relaxed this weekend, because I don't know, the Iran war's been over for a while. Amazing deals being made in China.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you ask for, Johnny Million? I feel like we should just...
And all the televised interactions between the two leaders, completely normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Not stiff, awkward. At least there were no Western journalists being rounded up during the trip for asking questions about Taiwan and put into a weird barn in the Forbidden City. At least that didn't happen. And then, of course, on top of that, at least, all right, there may be some foreign policy things that are going to wackadoodle, but at least the contract on the reflecting pool, in its own way, reflects the values of America in a way that I think we all can be proud of, in a true...
I didn't even realize he had to paint the bottom of that thing until they went and did it wrong.
Look, people think it's terrible, to paint the bottom of it American flag blue, but I'm waiting for them to put the fish stickers in. That's what I want to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then they can do they can have one of those diving toys that you throw in and you take turns trying to get. Yeah. And And then there'll be
maybe they should just stock it like a trout farm.
Yes, right. Just filled full of carp, like the lakes inside all those like Myrtle Beach tourist areas, where if you throw a crust of bread, it looks like something out of
everybody walking around because they think they're going to be growing
the Evanston canals. That's what we should do. You know what? Make the reflecting pool reflective of many of the runaway pest infested, invasive species infested areas of the country where, like the
Yeah, right
Evanston
on.
canals. And for those of you that don't know, some of you may live in the Chicago area. If you want your own little weekend excursion to a horror film, I highly recommend taking a date on a little walk around the Evanston canals. There's a couple little wooden bridges that cross over it. And if you take a bagel or some bread with you and you throw it into the water on a relatively, I guess, placid looking water surface, suddenly these bright white, bleached, overgrown carp will all rise up out of the darkness, fighting for this bread, slithering over top of themselves in something that is right out of an H.R. Geiger nightmare. There is a similar situation if you ever go to like some of these the Myrtle Beach places, which are these little community things. I remember seeing Steven Adler's Appetite at a place in Myrtle Beach, like one of these like rock bars that was on this kind of
Yeah, I
fake.
forgot that he did that.
Yeah, these fake lake areas, and you go down there and they have all these little pellets you can buy to throw out and feed the fish, which is a mistake and is something that you will want to melon ball your eyes out, after you see it, because they're smaller than the ones in Evanston and they are not bleached white like the ones in Evanston, but they are still ghostly and borderline see-through on their lower abdomens. So it just looks like they're alive and dying at the same time while fighting for these pellets. And there's no way, I guess, they overwhelmed the place. Anyway, so that's my expectation for the reflecting pool. We'll just leave it there before we nauseate everyone with this. And look, let's just say that's another example of how Republicans have, held as their motto, their proud motto for a long time, which of course is government can't do anything right. Elect me and I'll prove it. This has been, that's right.
Let me show you something.
Yeah, let me tell you something. They have had they're firing on all cylinders. I think my favorite story, and we have to get to this at least one segment today, is Kash Patel. Ooh, child! If you were worried that that by getting rid of Bondi or shelving Candace Owens, stiff arming her in the magosphere was going to end the Real Housewives drama of the White House, oh no! Every time we turn around, Kash Patel, it has got another example of how not to day drink on the job.
He looked so blasted in that hearing.
Okay. So my theory on this, and I'm curious what our chat room thinks. So chat room, fire up. I might throw a poll in the YouTube thing as well, just to see where this goes. But I was of two feelings about it. One, my first reaction, of course, knowing his history and everything we know about him now, is that he was hungover. To quote Paul Rudd in Anchorman, I am hungover. He looked like he had just, like somebody woke up, like, dude, hearing, like, okay, where are my notes? It had that energy, but it also had the completely sober, but just found out you're going to be fired. They're just looking for the window and you're going to get fired. So you just start packing your stuff because it's over. And you and Bongholio can go do like a dual podcast. Your first guest can be Bill O'Reilly and Pam Bondi. You know what? You can bring on Pam Bondi and you guys can all talk about the memo. What could possibly go wrong? But I couldn't tell. And that is the question. Drunk or just found out he's fired? Now, I am fully aware that more than likely the chat room, which is the greatest chat room in the history of chat rooms, will be firing up the both button because we now, obviously, we're aware that Kash Patel would react to news that he's possibly not long for the job by dousing the fire of his anger in flammable liquids that are barely consumable by humans. This is a dude who would like breathe fire with Bacardi at a party and catch his girlfriend's hair at the time. So much to cover, obviously, in my verbal irony laden opening to the show today. But there was a Johnny Million. You've heard of MK Ultra, have you not?
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah.
I believe was the original 3-blade razor before it became a CIA mind control program. Which, by the way, I use the MK Ultra
the MK
sometimes.
Ultra, yeah, they're so expensive though, but worth it.
Because it has a battery in the handle and it vibrates, and then once you run out of blades, it's still got other uses.
Oh
I think
God,
is the
remember
idea.
when they did that, the vibrating ones?
I actually have one because it's a clipper.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you take off the blade, the reason the vibrating part is there, so it's an electric like clipper, so you can do your sideburns and that kind of stuff. And then you put the other thing down, and then of course, if you're lonely on the road, I suppose it serves another purpose. I suppose, but I would remove the blade as well in that one. As a matter of fact, I would probably, I don't know, dip the clipper end in hot wax or something. I don't know. It just seems wrong. But I'm not here to yuck anybody's
Hot
yum.
wax. I'm unable to grow sideburns. There's a dead zone in here.
See, yeah, I have a gap as well. I have a gap between the hairline and the sideburns thing.
Yeah.
It's clear hair differentiation. I think, which for most of my, if you'll recall in high school, while I did have the Jackie Chan haircut most of the time, sideburns wise, when they did start coming in, you'll recall I shaved them completely off. Val Kilmer in Real Genius style. That is exactly where I have pulled that from, and I very well may do it again very soon. I've just, I've decided that I might, depending on the touring of the music and that kind of stuff, might go full mohawk at some point. But yeah, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with the Patel files, just to start us off. I figure we usually go from the
I'm
sublime
glad we're
to
doing
the
this. This, I can handle this.
We usually go from the sublime to the ridiculous, but I think we're going to have to flip the order just for our own mental health. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. My Lord. This is
my Lord.
See, that's another reason why I love you. Instant Prince reference recognition.
Yeah. I'm all over.
Hi, chat room. Hi, everybody. What's going on? Shaving and vibrating? What? Hey, look. If I'm not going to yuck your yum, leave me out of this.
Look.
Now.
We're just here shaving and vibrating.
He's obviously a lunatic. We don't use that phrase anymore. Well, what phrase would you use? Now. Well, he's very now. I'll tell you that.
Is that Pink Panther?
Yeah. He's very
nice.
now. I'll tell you that.
He's very now. I'll tell you that.
That should be the new 6s and 7s, I guess.
Yeah. Now. Well, he's very now.
God, he's very now. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Cash Patel. He's very now. I'll tell you that. Oh, I forgot I forgot to tease Eric Trump's flip out as well.
Oh, that's something that you get to tell me about. Ooh, fresh.
He got mad, girl. He got so mad.
All
right.
All right, guys, back in 60.
Thank you. God.
Girl.
I can't. This is so stupid. It's all, I mean, it's all like all right. I'm going to save it. Chat room, you know, chat room, take the wheel. Log. Let's see. Let's see. Is Substack up and running? It should be.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So at this point, I don't think anybody knows what to expect out of the next Crash Patel scandal. The one that broke. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Let's take a trip down memory lane. To where Trump appoints basically a sycophant to head the FBI, who, if you will recall, ran on turning the FBI headquarters into I guess, a mausoleum for the deep state. He was going to bury the deep state once and for all.
Yeah.
They were going to shut down the DC FBI headquarters, which, by the way, has seen a massive budget increase. And of course, it's his new, he views it as his cathedral. Like he's, I guess it would be really hard to part ways with a big fancy building with your name and your picture on the wall as soon as you walk in the door. It's, you kind of chuck that stuff right out the window. Yeah. But that didn't happen. And maggots all over kind of had one of their hinky moments where they're like, that's strange. He said he was going to shut the whole place down, and he seems to be settling in and feathering his nest quite nicely. I'll set that aside because he's going to go do a fabulous job restoring the something of America, of whatever the thing, and getting after the deep state. And see, sometimes you have to, lay down with dogs if you want to wake up with fleas. No, that's not the analogy. Sometimes you have to burrow in so that you can and get comfortable so that they don't expect the counterattack of extra budget money. No, that's not. How do you? Anyways, so they maggots let it slide, and then there was the memo, the unsigned DOJ memo that included, in theory, by having no signatures, Bongholio, Crash Patel, and Pam Blondie with the heart of glass. All three of them on a memo they didn't sign about nothing to see here. You know what? That whole memo or the whole non-prosecution agreement against the Epstein co-conspirators. That let's just make that national. Let's just
right.
Which effectively, more than anything, was what that did. Never mind the fact that they went, yeah, he killed himself, that nothing to see here, and move on. And there's no other files and blah, which of course everybody knew at the time was a lie, but has become an even bigger lie over time as they have released these little tranches and then tried not to. I mean, Trump arguably, and I think very arguably, launched this war in Iran because of the last 3 million files, which I would remind everyone also is not 3 million pages. They released 3 million pages of 6 million documents. That is not the half, okay? A document, not all documents are a page. A lot of documents are multiple pages. So you could release 3 million pages and have 3 million documents still released, which is 50 million pages or terabytes of pages of stuff. Just look at what Epstein's, I guess, accountants' documents over the years, what they must have entailed. Tens of thousands of pages every year, right? So the idea that they released half the pages of them was a lie that they pushed forward. Anyway, so that was bad. Then comes the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which, again, for the record, I am against in all forms, because not only do I think political assassination is a terrible business plan for your political ideals, because all it ever does is create backlash and turmoil, and it's never really solved anything. As a matter of fact, the most you can say is that it got your country attacked from the outside. Ask Germany, right there. It just doesn't work out. Even the people who are trying to stop the civil rights movement by killing civil rights leaders led to its codification in many ways. So counterproductive at its very level. Wrong, immoral, evil, but also not helpful. But when it came to Charlie Kirk, there had been such a conspiracy mindset on the right for so long because they couldn't figure out why Trump didn't do any of the things he said he was going to do in the first term, and things weren't magic then. So it must have been the deep state. It must have been. They must have been doing something behind there that kept him from doing what he wants. Similar to, he didn't want to attack Iran, but apparently Netanyahu, got a piece of his hair and wrapped it around a doll and stuck it with needles until he said,
I saw that
"Uncle."
in Weapons.
That's right. So all that aside, so Charlie Kirk's assassination is laden with the burden of the conspiratorial Pizzagate mindset that the QAnon crowd came in with, that they just can't shake. If you have that kind of anti-authority bent, even when your people are in authority, it's hard to shake. You know what I mean? It's like people have a tendency on a lower level to complain about their boss, even if they like their boss, because there's such a kind of knee-jerk reaction to bosses. Most people are like very self, even if you really like, even bringing up that you like the person, it's different in the arts because I get to, producers, directors, and that folks, like, we can always complain about the network or the studio while still liking our people, in the same way that most people hate the federal government, love their congressional representative, but theirs is special. Everybody else is on the take, but theirs is awesome. Whatever. Anyway, so I digress. Charlie Kirk's murder happens. His assassination happens. State murder charges filed against the would-be assassin, who is going through a trial, and they're going through all the evidentiary stuff, all the normal stuff. And since he didn't cross state lines to do it, it's not a federal investigation, really, unless there's some tie to he got funded from the outside or whatever. What does Kash Patel do? Well, he puts fixed-wing assets in play, which means airplanes, because he loves to use the FBI airplane, wheels up in 30 Criminal Minds style. And he flies into Utah to, lick rocks like an Indian scout in the old Lone Ranger series, go, the killer went that way. You know what I mean? Like licking his finger and putting it in the wind and going, I think there's a conspiracy, right? And yet accomplishing nothing except a free trip to Utah and a brand new ladies' medium jacket with a bunch of patches he didn't earn, that as he actively stole valor from FBI agents that put their life on the line. The last two FBI agents that we lost in the field were serving a warrant on a child predator in Florida. I know, you're shocked. When did that start happening, that Florida had child predators in it? I've never heard such a thing. They served a warrant on him with a group of U.S. Marshals, and the person fired at them through the door, and they were both killed. And those people deserve on their clothing book, those patches, the people who are on those teams, because that's the danger they put themselves in. Meanwhile, Kash Patel is asking, and this is, of all the other stuff, this I find the most horrendous, is asking for these breach team patches on his jacket when he has never done anything even remotely close to that. The only thing he's ever breached is a bottle of gin. And so it's offensive, and the stolen valor aspect of it I find disgusting. I have an uncle who was in the FBI, who did a lot of crappy hard work, listening in on gangsters, and he lived his retirement basically smoking cigarettes in the basement, waiting for the day that one of the guys he put away to get out show up at their door with a shotgun and ring the bell. That was a real concern.
Like the guy from One Crazy Summer who's trying to win the radio contest.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what my Uncle Dave looked like. Yeah. Yeah. Only my Uncle Dave had this thing where he just didn't believe anything after a while, and he was fully contradictory.
I get it.
It wasn't even I don't believe the government runs this, that it wasn't even that highfalutin. It was we need to put gas in the car. We don't have a car. It was that kind of stuff. People don't use gas anymore. It was that part, he got very old. Anyway, so point being, Kash Patel does that, steals valor from FBI agents who put their lives on the line, chasing down, serial killers, child predators, gun runners, drug runners, like horrible, horrible stuff they have to deal with. And he's like, give me the patch too. Hey, wait up, guys. And obviously did not find some grand conspiracy of left-wing furries that were planning on taking out Charlie Kirk. That's just proceeded like a normal, horrible circumstance, which is exactly what it is. And maggots are very upset about that. And we're at the break, and we haven't even gotten to where the misappropriation of funds and his ridiculous defense of said.
Sounds like us.
Yeah, but it all started with the Atlantic's article that he is suing over, which seems to be the whiny, Trumpy thing that they all do now, which has which was this Atlantic article that said the FBI director is MIA. This is the one he's suing everybody over, Johnny Million, is that he's missing in action. And my thing was, you say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be missed. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, infotainmentwars.com. All right. Yeah, this is the one he's suing everybody over. I don't know if you ever had a chance to read this one, but it's pretty sweet. And they keep up. This is the one where the Sarah Fitzpatrick went on the news after he threatened to sue and went, I've actually got more sources since this story came out, so knock yourself out, buddy.
Yeah. She seemed pretty stoked to defend it.
Oh, yeah. My favorite one, and this is where I think was he worried about was he hung over, or was he worried about being fired, was this particular article, because it started with the fact that he couldn't remember his password. And he thought he'd been locked out because he was being fired. Like somebody was going to knock on his door and tell him to grab his box full of personal stuff. His baseball, his hockey puck, his picture with Ted Nugent, whatever he had adorned the office with.
The remote control, the thermos.
That's right. My dog. I don't need my dog.
The dog did not like him.
I have to say, there are two of the funniest dog bits in the world are that one and Jim Carrey's impersonation of a Saint Bernard.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that.
It's really easy. You can do it yourself. It's been around for a long time. He did not invent it, but he made it popular. Which is you just take a giant drink of water, just fill your mouth with water and go, and the water just comes out because they slobber. Anyway, it's a great physical gag. Just let the water fly. By the way, beloved chat room, how are you guys? Good to see you. Hit the like, share the show, etc., etc., etc. Just gonna, I think I have to reload the page. Yeah, that's from yesterday. Start the conversation with your audience. I already am. Oops, something went wrong.
Start it now.
I did reload it. There you go. What's up, Twitch people? How you doing? EO, what's happening, man? Hi, Rod. And we'll get to the super chits during the last segment of this hour. I'd like to read those. And so, hello, people from Ireland. Don't get me in trouble for taking foreign funds and I'll have to register as a foreign actor. There was a maggot who got all mad that apparently people like me who have shows who occasionally get Canadian dollars are like, we should register as foreign.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. That'll work. Yeah. Try that one out, buddy. Watch that grind to a halt. Hello, what's going on? Good to see you. Do we have any maggots today? I think we do. Cash is requesting a XXX small wetsuit. We'll get to that in a minute. When he went on an Easter egg hunt in Arlington. So gross. All right. And I would like to make a very clear distinction while we're in break that they people described his behavior when he couldn't log into his account as a freak out, not a freak off,
Think Theory Radio,
which is the
Saturdays
PK
at
thing.
6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So Kash Patel is going to sue The Atlantic over an article that starts off with a wonderful story that I think we all enjoyed, and I'd like to recap because some of this stuff is so choice. It is so choice. It gets left behind. On Friday, April 10th, as FBI Director Kash Patel was preparing to leave work for the weekend, so this probably happened around 10 a.m., he struggled to log on to an internal computer system. And the struggle is real, ladies and gentlemen. He quickly became convinced that he had been locked out, and he panicked, frantically calling aides and allies to announce that he had been fired by the White House, according to 9 people familiar with his outreach. 2 of these people described his behavior as a freak out. And again, we don't know if he was
like that. Holy heck.
Well, again, this is a dude with imposter syndrome that I would argue is earned. You know, okay. So Patel oversees. It turned out that the answer of what had happened was Patel. He had not been fired. The access problem, 2 people familiar with the matter said, appears to have been a technical error and was quickly resolved. It was all ultimately BS, one FBI official told me. But Patel, according to multiple current officials as well as former officials who've stayed close to him, is deeply concerned that his job is in jeopardy. I can't imagine why. Well, let's start looking into some of the stuff. So one of the things that he's gotten a lot of trouble for, besides drinking with the U.S. hockey team while he was supposed to be over there. And by the way, his defense in Congress about this, when he was asked about his drunken escapades, was that he was over there to catch one of America's Most Wanted, right? Which, again, I don't know why we haven't made Walsh the head of the FBI at this point, if that's 100% of our goal, because he's been pretty good at it. But he says we're over there to catch this terrible Chinese drug dealer guy, who, by the way, was caught extradited 2 weeks ago, not during the Winter Olympics, not while he was there. They didn't have to go there to secure anything. It's not like they went and caught him and then put him in a jail and then they worked on the extradition. Like, he flew over to grab the dude. Also, the idea that he is in Italy licking rocks and figuring out which way the wind blew is so dumb. That's, by the way, that is my forever picture of Kash Patel trying to appear, you know, like in full Columbo mode. He's just picking up pieces of gravel and going, and then going, I think he weighs about 160 pounds, brown hair, you know, single Italian male. All right. So he goes over during the Winter Olympics to secure the arrest of somebody who never made the top 10 list. We find out this week, obviously, that his brag in Congress that they had caught 8 out of 10 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, twice as many as the previous administration, who, by the way, had been looking after people who'd been on the list for years. The way that Kash Patel's FBI pads those numbers is that when they know they have somebody cornered effectively, sometimes within hours, if not 24 hours of them arresting the person, because they know where they are, they know they can't leave, they've got eyes on them, their phones are bugged, they've got, you know, surveillance on the person, and they're just waiting for the moment to move in and get them in, you know, the where the person has the least chance to kill FBI agents in the process. You plan your arrest and you go in with U.S. Marshals or members of Interpol if they're overseas and that kind of stuff. And so they plan these things. And so what Kash Patel's group does is that they know they're going to catch somebody tomorrow, not one of the world's worst, probably a terrible criminal, but not anywhere near the top 10. And then they would add them to the top 10 when they know they're going to catch them. And then look what we did. We got one of the top 10 criminals in the world, even though that person had only been on the list since they left the house that morning to go get them. So, I mean, just an absurdity. So, no, there hasn't been 100%, more worst criminals in the world caught under this idiot by any means. And during Biden, which again was Chris Wray, which was Trump's appointee, he complains more about people that he puts in charge of stuff a lot of times than the people that were already there. I mean, he hates Comey, but that's going to fail. We'll get to that later. But over the next couple of weeks, I have no doubt. But so there were several stories in this, which was that after Pam Bondi went, he thought and Bongholio quit before he could be fired effectively, because he was the first deputy director of the FBI who had training wheels. It was adorable watching him roll around FBI headquarters on a little mini bicycle with his little training wheels on, his little bell going ring, ring, while a guy who actually knew how to do the job was the assistant deputy director, which it was literally doing all the work, while Bongholio sat in his office listening to Kash Patel, pee and sing Sweet Caroline through the wall. I don't know what was going on. Right. Exactly. That was a great night in Nashville last night. You should have been with us, man. We had hey, Bongholio, man, you got to come with us next time, man. You got it. It's the best. How's your office? These walls are so thin. All right. So anyways, in this particular instance, he was convinced he was going to be fired because he knows it. And then when they, reached out to the FBI for, a comment, as they always do, as newspapers always do, the response was, print it, all false. I'll see you in court. Bring your checkbook. All right. Well, obviously, he thinks he can, in the interim, hunt down and fire or put in jail anybody who, quote unquote, leaked stuff about him. Now, in those same terms, I would like to remind everybody of a classic Sparksism, which of course is you can't leak a lie, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Always remember that. You can lie, you can just make something up, but you're just making something up. If it's a leak, it has to be true. Otherwise, it's not a leak, it's just a lie. You can't leak a lie. There's no such thing. That doesn't happen. Never has. It's absurd. Silly people. Okay, so obviously the discovery on this,
him giving the people on his staff the lie detector tests.
Oh yeah, he's giving them polygraphs. They do those all the time, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm showing those. Like everything he answered was like, "I got you on semantics, bro."
Right, and he's like, "Did you order them?" And he's like, "No, I didn't order them. They get ordered by the IG group or whatever." It's like, yeah, right. At your directive, dummy. Like nobody. This is so lame. Like, and that government conversation, you can't tell the IG to give somebody a polygraph via Signal. You do realize that, right? You do realize that these emails exist and that those people have to testify, and they will, because they're real legit FBI agents and FBI employees. They're not going to lie for you, buddy. You don't get to lay that on there. So, all right. Anyway, so the follow-up to this, I'm going to sue everybody. You guys are done. I'm suing everybody. So what happens? Well, everybody just starts digging in. And we find out this week that not only did he use the FBI plane, the jet, again, made famous on Criminal Minds, these G5s that they have, which are very expensive to operate, obviously, and are full of equipment that isn't just, it's not like a regular private jet. It's got a lot of stuff in it, and that stuff needs to be in places when it's being used. Hence his whole fixed wing, and propeller aircraft all the time. He's like, sorry, you got a helicopter in the air when the Tyler Robinson thing happened so that you could fly a helicopter, from Utah to California and then to DC? What are you talking about? So we got fixed wing assets in the air so you could circle it? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's so stupid. It's so embarrassing. Anyway, so we find out he took his girlfriend to this concert and stayed in this $50,000 suite that was there, and they're not saying who paid for it. So it's either we did, the taxpayer, which is bad enough, or some, multimillionaire friend of Patel's or Trump's, which again is leverage against a possible future FBI investigation against that person, right? This is straight up bribery. But he flew her to this like luxury date night, Alexis Wilkins. Now, I have my theory, and a lot of people have their theories, that Alexis is one of two beards he has. That's the talk among the general MAGA tree as well. This is not some sort of left-wing conspiracy about Kash Patel. Is the idea that he shares a home with a grown man that lets him live rent-free in his house in Las Vegas when he's not living on the taxpayer dime. And again, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. I think a lot of the pressure would be taken off some of these fools if they just were.
Like Lindsey Graham, just come out, you ding dong.
I got it. Yeah, right. But because Democrats don't have this problem, we jettison any predators among us instantly. And we don't care if what somebody does in their private life, as long as it's consensual with a fellow adult. That would be it. Everything else is none of my business as long as you're an honorable person in your job, right? But not in the case of Republicans. It's just, and it might just be, we worry about foreign bribery or foreign extortion about these folks. But I got to tell you, it seems more internal. Like Trump himself uses this as leverage, Roy Cohn style, against people in his cabinet. Anyway, so he took her to this concert, and they stayed in this thing. It was Patel and Wilkins reportedly traveled from Washington to Philadelphia on May 10th, 2025. That was right out of the gate, man. He hit the ground running in May of last year to watch George Strait and Chris Stapleton perform from a private suite that cost between $35,000 and $50,000. $35,000 and $50,000. And that the FBI flight crew and Patel's security detail remained until after 11 p.m., waiting for the couple to leave the concert, thereby collecting overtime pay. So again, all the security people around him had to stay. And George Strait, I hope they got to hear some of that. It's lovely, but knock yourself out. But still, we're paying for them to have overtime pay so that he can go on date night, and he's out past 11 with this or whatever. And then they flew him back. So when asked by the Times who paid for the luxury suite, Patel, through an FBI spokesperson, declined to answer. And they told him that the paper that Wilkins had been, quote, an invited guest of the performers. Cool. Well, I don't know if you know this, but there are a lot of commercial flights that are very nice that fly in from Nashville to Pennsylvania and back. And, they could have gone that whole route themselves from her place in an entirely different state from his. Okay, though Representatives Strait and Stapleton reportedly did not respond to multiple requests for confirmation from the Times. So I'm going to guess that's a no. This is the least of it. The next one is this Pearl Harbor thing. So we got to talk about this one. The jacket and the stealing of valor from actual FBI agents. But snorkeling at the Pearl Harbor Memorial, again, is like doing a scavenger hunt in Arlington with a bunch of your friends. It's how the phrase goes, not done. It's simply not done. Especially snorkeling. Visiting the site has been done by dignitaries over the years, and it is an emotional trip for a lot of these folks. The idea that you would go snorkeling in Hawaii around the Pearl Harbor Memorial is hideous. But it makes sense if you look at, Kash Patel hired by the guy who says that John McCain wasn't a hero because he was captured. People can believe what they want about the suckers and losers thing and whether it was played up or played down or it was just an attitude he had or whatever that Trump said that. But I find it very easy to believe he would say that after he had said that POWs are not war heroes. Let's be clear. It wasn't just about McCain. I like my heroes. I like people who weren't
just
captured.
In general, people who get captured.
Right. Yep. It wasn't just a McCain slight. It was against all POWs. So not only whenever you see a Trump flag with a POW flag next to it, not only do they forget they dismiss. We'll be back right after this.
So many things they do not understand.
Oof. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Children were their
Hal, I am going to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that I mute my microphone.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it. Johnny. Oh man, Johnny. It's all right. We can. I guess we could just pretend it's something else. You know what I mean? Like one of those wave machines or something like that. We can just pretend that it's not. Oh no. Oh dear God. Johnny. I can't. Please. I was about to say shut the door, but I don't know that'll help. You still got your mic on. Johnny. Oh no. Oh, this is. I can't. Okay. Well, I hope you're feeling better. Man, at least he's done. I can't. Oh no, a follow-up. What are you, a camel? How is this even? All right. Oh, and you're still going in your back.
I get to hear it all too the whole time.
I'd see a doctor about that.
Laughter. Those are some amazing sound effects.
Yes, it's obviously Dumb and Dumber. I just realized. Hold on one second.
You can shop Blue. Chicago's
progressive. I realized how we could do that.
WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Jeff Daniels,
This
man.
is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio.
Good.
Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I can make it look like we're in the same room, Johnny. Almost.
Oh, what?
Welcome back. So, this whole he's gone. Oh, he's gone. I gotta learn how to spit. Oh no, he's disappeared. Ouch, that hurts. All right. So this is one of those things that you would talk about your unforced errors. So, as he's
snorkel on purpose.
I love snorkeling. What are you talking about? I've had 2 of my greatest shark encounters while snorkeling. You know, that
out of how many? Were your other shark encounters like on the 405?
No, 4. I've had 4 shark encounters.
Oh, not
in my life. Yeah, and I the scariest one I would argue was Sans Snorkel. I was in Hawaii as well, nowhere near the Pearl Harbor Memorial. I would like to add unnecessarily, but I think it's got value. Swimming over a reef, one of those things where it's only about 3 feet of water between you and the top of the reef, so you can kind of swim over it, look down, and see the fish, and it was really lovely. And I swam over this. There was a big hole in the reef, and as I looked down, there's a shark just sitting. Like, not a basking shark, but a shark that was indeed basking. If you ask me, it was probably a little mako, a small mako, very possibly.
Okay.
Just by himself, just kind of hanging out, waiting for, alligator style for something to swim by. But he was down deep into the hole that was in this thing. And so I just figured the water's too shallow for him to sort of come after me. If I needed to run on the top of the reef, I kind of could at that point. So I felt like even though, again, that whole statistic about most shark attacks happen in shallow water. It's like, yeah, that's because that's where the people are, by and large.
No,
and you don't hear about the ones that happen in deep water because their ship just disappeared, right? So, anyways, I kept swimming, and I was like, it made me a little nervous, but I figured, okay, I left him behind, and we're fine, or whatever. And then I kept swimming, and then I realized, wow, the water got really dark all of a sudden, and I realized I had swam past the shelf. I was so focused on, on looking down in the water that I had not realized how far out I was. And at that point, I was not imagining that a shark was going to get me. I was more concerned with whatever ate Kevin Costner in Waterworld coming up out of the deep and just swallowing me whole. So I literally had one of these, nothing to see here. No, just I'm just plankton. I'm just floating plankton, calming myself, doing breathing exercises, trying to keep my heartbeat as low as possible so I didn't sound like a panicked fish for 10 miles in every direction. And managed to swim back by, and I avoided the hole in the reef as best I could. But if I wanted, that was the direct path back. And as I'm swimming, he's not there anymore. And that's when I really got nervous, because between the reef and the beach was about 100 yards of open water.
Oh boy.
That was about, maybe 16 feet deep. Plenty. You know what I mean? Like Cape Cod Jaws style. So anyways, I enjoy snorkeling. I prefer scuba diving because I feel like I have more options. You can always turn your back on them and let them bite your tank. That was always my theory. And I know it's ridiculous, but I'm sticking to it. Note to self, ask AI to develop a brand new shark spray. There's got to be some sort of thing you can wear that just stinks and they hate it. So
I think I make one of those naturally.
I think so. I think we heard it during the thing. That's what you were doing, was making shark repellent. It's your side hustle.
Got to go make shark repellent.
Right. Actually, unfortunately, I will tell you that considering how sharks eat, that is not a repellent. That is a dinner bell, just like any other bodily semi-solid. That said, last summer, he capped a whirlwind South Pacific trip with a snorkel trip in Hawaii, where Navy SEALs used 2 boats to transport and escort Mr. Patel and 9 other people on what a Defense Department email called a VIP snorkel next to one of the military's most sacred sites, the underwater tomb of the USS Arizona, that holds the remains of more than 900 Navy sailors and Marines who died at Pearl Harbor. Patel swam in the vicinity of the tomb for 30 minutes, according to the Navy. Out of respect for the dead entombed in the wreck of the Arizona, rules bar visitors even from wearing swimwear at the memorial. So I'm assuming he had a snorkel and a 3-piece suit on. At this point, is that going to be their defense? It's just gross. And I have to tell you, right now, the irony of this, and this yet another thing we can add to the list of, this would end every other presidency, right? If the guy you appointed, you fired the other guy that you hired after you fired the other guy, is doing all these things, and there's just no ramifications, and largely because we've got bigger fish to fry. The guy started a war in Iran. He's clearly, out to lunch on China and a bunch of other things. And this a similar kind of breakout has happened, amongst everybody else in this situation. So it's hard to even track the worst scandal currently. So in the last couple of minutes of this hour, before Phil joins us in the next hour from Ukraine, and we'll talk about some of these things, especially Iran, because of his time in the Middle East. He was stationed throughout the Middle East, and a couple of things. Trump flew to China and basically got his tuchus handed to him by someone who is arguably more illiterate than he is. Xi Jinping is not a smart man, no matter what Trump says. The general populace makes fun of him by showing pictures of him as Winnie the Pooh, because that's what they think he looks like. He is known to be what Trump would say is the opposite of well-read. And so much so that they put out books called The Readings of Xi Jinping to give the illusion that these are books that he has read, which he clearly is not. And the way he's hung on to power in the CCP is by purging people, not by earning his job. He is the military council that he had is now down to 2 people, him and the guy who takes notes. Guo Wengui, who was friends with Steve Bannon, was one of his basically false dissident operatives that he, was getting close to the Trump administration in the first term, and still is, would be buddies with Steve Bannon. Meanwhile, there was a near military coup in the last fall, and Xi Jinping did it by purging them, not by finding people better suited to the job. That's just how it is. They're facing a demographic crisis. Their economy is in shambles. They import 80 to 85% of their energy and food, not because they don't have the propensity and the ability to mine coal or their own petroleum products, but because they have done such a poor job of it that they have these giant lakes that used to be coal mines that, because they diverted water, filled up with black water and have toxified the air, what used to be arable farmland around there. So they have to import more and more food. And even with that, Trump went over there and is beating his chest that he sold them. They're going to buy $10 billion of soybeans from us. Well, they bought 20 from Argentina after we bailed out Argentina to the tune of $20 billion. We gave them $20 billion for free, and China gave them $20 billion for soybeans. And now they've agreed to buy 10. They need 50, and they're only buying 10 from us. And if this is anything like deal number one from last time, if remember phase one of the Trump deal that he didn't really care about after COVID because he was so mad at his best friend Xi Jinping. Okay, that they never lived up to the $30 billion that they needed, that they were going to buy from us then. They bought it from European farmers. They bought it from places in Georgia that Russia had seized. I mean, this is how they operate. They're setting up farms in Africa, taking over huge swaths of land there. It is a colonization not seen since the 1800s. And that's why they're not buying as much from us. That and as a power play that Trump is too stupid to figure out. They were going to buy 500 planes. Boeing thought they were going to buy 500 jets. They're buying 200. They probably need more, but they'll go to Airbus and other places, other companies, other countries. And Trump said they were only going to buy 150. So he's even lowered the number of expectation to below what they actually bought to make it look like he added the deal. He did not. It's less than half of what they were expecting. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with Phil joining us from Kyiv in Ukraine, and talk to him a little bit about the Middle East as well. And hit the like, share the show, annoy the maggot in your life, spread the show around. And of course, patreon.com/HalSparks is why we're on the air primarily. Thank you guys for your continued support. You guys are the backbone of the show. And if you want to come see Nerd Halen next week, you can bring a guest if you're one of my Patreons with you for free and stuff. And I'll see you, and we'll be back.
Tune into the Tom Hartman radio program, your home for news, opinion, and insight, right here on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carton. President Trump says the most active terrorist in the world has been killed.
The most active terrorist in the world has been killed.
Yeah,
Right.
He does like Iron Man's ultramarathons.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's like active shooter. Was he wearing a like one of those sweat outfits? Like he was wearing a tracksuit and he had a towel around his neck and he was shadow boxing. So stupid. Okay. Let me bring in Phil and make sure my little screens are firing on all cylinders. There's two guests. Where's my double guesty situation? Oh, I know one. Okay, we'll go back to here. Guest one, two guests. Dink. Here we go. And I got to change your names on here. Because Johnny is Johnny and Phil is not Anita from True Blue Politics. That's very important. Who were great guests, by the way. Unfortunately, Anita's audio was rough, so we need to get her back on when she has a phone from this decade. Bless her heart. I kid. All right. There we go. And bring this in. And one more thing. And that's Johnny, sorry. Here's that one. And one more thing, and then we'll get Phil in here. There you go. Always clean up. It's always something.
It's always something.
You know what happens is I get down a news rabbit hole, and then I don't have time to do my graphics. Let's bring him in. Here he is. Welcome,
Hey, guys.
sir. Hiya.
Hiya, Phil.
So, we're doing all right. Hey, and don't forget, everybody, subscribe. Just my graphic happens automatically now, I guess. So yeah, lots.
I haven't seen that thing about Patel. Where he went? Did he actually go swimming?
He went snorkeling at the at the Pearl Harbor Memorial.
Yeah.
Again, just, I mean,
I've been to that
gross.
memorial.
Yeah.
That's hallowed ground. It's like when
It
Trump
is.
went to Arlington.
And gave a thumbs up picture in front of a tombstone.
Yeah, these guys are all like, the only thing they think about when they think about military service or war is the sexy explosions and the
right
buff macho, kind of.
Well, because they know they're not
stuff.
gonna see any of it. I want to thank you, Lisa Miamore, for the super chat. Sparklers assemble, and then of course Maxwell, thank you from Ireland with your thumbs up. I'm gonna have to register as a foreign agent now. Thanks. That was one of the things that the maggot media was saying this week, was that apparently shows like mine get the occasional super chat from Ireland or Canada, so therefore we're foreign agents.
Right.
As if I say anything different. Hello, and by the way, let me know if you guys are going to be at the Johnny Million's going to be joining us for the Chicago Nerd Halen show. I insist.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yep. Well,
you gotta figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring you guitar.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be the government giving you money. If people give you Patreon,
you're listening to WCPT.
You don't need to register for that, I don't think.
Well, that's
anyhow.
It's BS. Thank you, Hal Vickery.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before.
I think this is as violent as Hal Vickery gets.
It's being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Plus face little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back. And Hal Vickery, thank you for the super chat. He says Trump should have put diving boards at both ends of the reflecting pool and then taken the first dive. That is the closest he will ever get to voicing political violence, and obviously self-inflicted. I don't think you can do anything about. Philip Ittner is joining us, host of On the Edge. Philip with one L, Ittner with two T's. Check out his YouTube page and subscribe if you would. New episodes are coming out. They're finally dealing with their power problems and obviously issues, I guess. One of the biggest things, obviously, is that there were a lot of deaths in Kyiv over the last week because of bombings that happened there. I don't know how close that was to you, but I remember when it was first announced. I have to admit, I, like a lot of our chat, got very nervous for you because of your proximity to it. What can you tell us about that attack? And where it was?
It was right after I'd spoken to you on Wednesday night, and that's when it really started in earnest. And we had a ballistic missile hit probably about a mile and change away from where I am now.
Right.
Lots of anti-aircraft stuff. Most of it was stopped. Sadly, the things that seemed to have gotten through were the ballistic missiles, or the cruise missiles in particular, which indicates that the concerns that people have been saying that the Patriot missiles aren't getting here from that they were promised by Congress, allocated by Congress, aren't here otherwise, because that's the only thing that really stops those hypersonic missiles is the Patriots. So there's concern about that. There's anger about the fact that it does seem as though one of the ways they were able to provide build up such a big swarm of weapons was that they'd had a 2.5-3 day truce because of May 9th, and this whole big thing about them saying to the Ukrainians, we want to have our Victory Day parade in Moscow, and you better not do anything. And so the Ukrainians went along with it. And it appears that that was also
They
kind
used
of a
the time to
ruse.
reload.
They used the time to reload, which we were able to hit so hard immediately after the quote unquote ceasefire ended. So a lot of resentment there for that. Stuff going on the battlefield. Not a lot going on the diplomatic front. Well, I say not a lot. I mean, there's always something going on, but there's no real headline there. It's still also interesting that it does seem like Moscow and Putin's administration are preparing their people for some sort of ending of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of kind of read between the lines as to what he's been saying recently and what the Russian government and military have been doing. So has Russia woken up to the fact that they can't win? Don't know. They're not doing very well on the front lines. The fighting is not going their way, and who knows how many more summers or spring and summer fighting seasons they have left in them, because more money is coming from the European Union. The Ukrainians are building up their military-industrial complex. So unless they make a major, they being the Russians, make a major breakthrough this spring and summer, they're not going to have better luck next year. So unless something completely unexpected happens, which is, of course, always possible in war.
Yeah, always a concern. I doubt it. And by the way, Johnny Million will be farming questions for you that we might have in the chat room. I don't know if we have any right out of the gate, Johnny. But
just yet.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let Johnny or Andrea know, or both. And if you've got a question for Phil about what's going on in Ukraine currently, there are a lot of parallels between sort of Trump's behavior towards Iran and Vladimir Putin's behavior towards Ukraine. It seems if there is a tactical, or if at the very least PR page that he's taking out of things, it's right out of how Russia talks about the threat from Ukraine and how important it is, and they have to do this it's an existential threat that they have to deal with it. We've seen this with Vladimir Putin the entire time, but it also seems like they're both in the same box, that in claiming that, this is an existential threat. Well, if you fail, then you have lost an existential battle for the identity and the power of your country, right? So you've got to come out the other side with either the illusion of a win or the total decimation of a populace, or it's not exactly like you have bragging rights. And that's the only thing keeping Trump afloat right now on almost all fronts, is that he thinks he can brag his way out of everything, even if the brag is a lie. And the same thing has been true of Putin and Simonyan and Solovyev, and those guys have been relatively quiet, I will say, lately, because I think the news has been about Russian mill bloggers turning on the Kremlin with a kind of, hey guys, what gives attitude. And then they vanish. It's hard to say. I just don't understand. I don't see how they polish this excrement. I don't see how they're able to do this.
No, and they're clearly prepping for giving some sort of excuse to the Russian people as to, why it didn't go well. Either changing the goalposts or saying, oh, well, this is what we wanted all along, so we're fine. Mm-hmm. Or, we've decided that we'll pursue this by diplomatic means instead of military means, or yada, yada, yada. There's a Russian news organization in exile that says it got its hands on some talk, like, okay, this is how we're going to roll out this idea so that people accept that.
Right.
We didn't lose. We didn't lose. But this was the plan the entire time.
It's alternate winning. They've got alternate winning. Yeah.
And then also, it's obviously they're trying to get stronger controls on social media and things like that. So they're also trying to shut down independent voices, but also stop any kind of street protest organization or anything like that. So I don't know, but it looks like the Kremlin is trying to inch towards a place where um, they can stop and they'll try and declare victory, but I don't think anybody's going to, even the Russian population is going to be, like obviously no. So we'll see.
But I would argue that is exactly the point, or the attempt, anyways.
They both think they can just manifest it,
right? Yeah.
That if they say it enough, and if their true faithful get on board, then that's all that's going to matter. And we're winning in Iran, we're winning in Ukraine, and anybody who tells you differently, is a traitor and a liar. And by so doing, they're going to try and gaslight and kind of, as I say, manifest victory when there is none.
And again,
everybody knows the truth. Everybody knows the truth.
Well, I think that's the same situation that Trump finds himself in with the Iran war, even amongst the faithful. And over here, we do have the ability, even if it seems cowed by the media at this point, or it was temporarily with, Trump's takeover of CBS and all those kind of things, it's still not stopping the bad news. The bad news is so self-evident that they just can't get around it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. If you get a chance during the break, while you're listening to the ads and supporting the station, hit the subscribe button on Phil's show at Phil's YouTube channel. And the show's called On the Edge. Check it out. We'll be back right after this.
Think Theory Radio.
So also the big news in theory was that Putin told Trump there would be no peace deal this year. Officially, there's not even going to be one. You could pretend there is, but you can tell your people all you want and blame it on us, but we're not doing it. Yeah.
We'll see.
Right. Well, and again, peace deal versus them just straight up losing. And having to, bug out and find some other, storyline for themselves is a different thing. Again, it's all so nuts.
Yeah.
But they also think that they're going to capture the Donbass and claim new territories this year, which is fanciful garbage.
They're not making any progress no significant progress on the front lines. I mean, they're getting pushed back from Pokrovsk, which is is kind of the lead up to the westernmost fortress city of Slovyansk. So can't take Slovyansk until you take Pokrovsk, and they're being repelled from Pokrovsk. So it's not even that they've gotten to the big cities yet. They can't even.
Listen to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So it's one thing that Trump BS's himself all the time. We know this. But when he actively BS's the American public, it's almost like there's a belief, I guess, in the general maggotry that this is his super talent, that he can BS the general public with a majesty that is so, by the way, not a normal politician. This is one of the sales pitches that they had, was he's not like other politicians. He's a straight shooter and he tells you the truth about all this and blah, blah, blah. When in reality, he's fairly terrible at it. He just thinks he can bully his way through it. He can call somebody stupid or a dumb person, and the reporter's dumb for even asking the question, which I think is a slight at Tucker Carlson ultimately. But reporting is that the Kremlin believes that they will be able to quickly capture the Donbass, which is hilarious, both equal parts hilarious and sad. And that they hope, and this is, again, I think it was, if anybody's watched the F1 movie, hope is not a strategy. Russia hopes to completely capture the Donbass by the end of the year, so it does not plan to sign a peace agreement yet. And Vladimir Putin allegedly directly stated this to Donald Trump during their last phone conversation, reported by Yulia Zabalina, who has insider information. She's got people inside the White House that I guess that are telling her stuff, thus citing her own sources in the wings of the American government. The journalist said that Trump's special envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff never made their visit to Kyiv because they cannot offer anything other than the transfer of Donbass to the Russians, and Kyiv categorically does not agree to this. There's so many parallels between this and what our talks with the Iranians, that these are just non-starters across the board.
I think actually, I do think that there are many Ukrainians who would accept ceding Donbass, Donetsk and Luhansk, which have been occupied for over a decade, and many people are kind of the opinion that they've been kind of Russified. Mariupol is going to be a different question. That's occupied currently by the Russians. It's the only major city that the Russians occupy currently. That is a pill that's going to be much more difficult for Kiev to swallow. And then Crimea, at the end of the day, the question of Crimea. And that's a really difficult one. And it's one that Ukraine wants to get back, does not want to leave Ukrainian citizens behind on the peninsula. But it's a really difficult thing to achieve militarily. And so there's been talk of, maybe a diplomatic solution, special status, who knows? But they're not going to get much more land, not militarily. The Russians, they may inch forward, they may take a bit here and take a bit there, but Ukraine is the one that is got the momentum right now, not Russia. So, what do they? What does the end agreement look like? Does it look, does it include ceding Donetsk and Lugansk, or at least parts of it? I mean, the entire Donbass is not occupied right now. So what they would be demanding is, that Kiev just cedes this land and doesn't even fight for it, just gives it up. And that I don't think is something that's going to be palatable here. So, Putin can say what he wants, and Trump can kind of parrot Putin, whatever. But what I think both of them need to recognize, the Europeans are already recognizing this, but what Washington and Moscow need to recognize is that Ukraine is increasingly in a position where, and they always have been, but their position is stronger by the day almost, and they are going to have a say in any kind of negotiated peace. So it's this idea that Washington and Moscow are going to gang up on Ukraine and say you have to give up this or you have to give up that is kind of wishful thinking, because the wind is at Ukraine's back.
Right. And what does it mean for Russia to hold that territory going forward? Like the seizing of that territory through all of this and the number of dead and all that, and we'll look at the numbers that Russia is still suffering in losses in the next segment as well. But what does that look like afterwards? Let's say there's some sort of peace deal signed, and they go, okay, we're going to give up the parts of the Donbass you've taken, nothing you haven't, and Crimea, we're going to go to the UN and have a special we're going to do this as a legal fight over the next decade and make everybody, we're going to sanction everybody who has a summer home there that's Russian and consider them part of, the murder of Ukrainians. And if you're going to take that land, like the Iranians are asking for reparations in every version of their agreement that they send to Trump, it includes you're going to have to pay us back for the damage. That is reflective in many ways of what the Ukrainians are going to be asking for as well. That's an understood. And that the world, especially Europe, and I think most of the American people understand that Russia, because they were the invading force, if they back out and do this and they get some land from it, they're going to have to help rebuild the parts of the country they weren't able to take. And they're going to be either through sanctions or direct payments or something else. But in the meantime, let's say Trump lifts the sanction on Russian oil to try to drive the price down. Russia's going to have to curtail their shipments anyways to keep the price up so they can make as much of a profit off of it for as long as they can. And so it's just like, I just don't see how the post-war part of it works out in their favor either. We've talked a lot about, yeah, you might be able to take a city, but you can't keep it. And the same thing will be kind of similar in the Donbass and Crimea going forward after this. I mean, it's just a future of like sectarian violence and legal troubles for Russia.
Grozny, the capital of Chechnya, was an absolute, destroyed, dilapidated city for years before they did anything about it. They would just, it's an albatross around their neck because all they're getting are a bunch of towns and cities that have been flattened. And so what, are they going to rebuild that at a cost?
Right.
Who's going to inhabit those towns? How are they going to, I mean, there's even reports already that in Mariupol, which they have used as a selling point for, well, isn't it great when Russia conquers a city and then it rebuilds it and, everybody can come and join and you can move to Mariupol for next to nothing and we'll finance so much and all the rest of it. And then these Russians who come in from outer Siberia thinking that, okay, well, now there's a new Western European style city that is part of the Russian Federation. And they show up and these buildings are just absolutely made with shoddy workmanship. And they were just, thrown up as quickly as they possibly could to be a Potemkin village. And then, we hear all these reports of like Russians who are incentivized to move to Mariupol. They get there and it's like, well, this is a piece of, these are terrible buildings. So what are they going to do with all this land that they've conquered? For what? Well, for what?
Right.
What have they done any of it for?
Well, primarily, it looks like they're using their relationship with China not as military support, but as infrastructure support, because this sounds a lot like the Chinese ghost cities and the construction that you see in these empty apartment blocks outside of Beijing, that they're never meant almost to be livable, certainly in the commercial sense in China, but in Russia, they'll do until we have some real buildings or something. I don't know what that theory is. And Johnny, I think we do have some questions. I don't know if they're popping up in the Twitch. CSL is going to have them in there, but I want to get to at least one before we get to the break.
Sure. I've got one from PB Lou. How much is the oil blockade in Iran impacting Ukraine?
Ukraine, not so much. Russia is having repercussions because they're loosening some of the sanctions so that they can try and adjust for global oil prices. But Ukraine doesn't really rely on oil from the Straits of Hormuz. They've got other ways of getting oil, and it used to be Russia, of course, but they still have other options, and they're not. It's not really affecting things here. And also they a lot of the power and the energy infrastructure in Ukraine is nuclear, so there's a lot of that as well.
Yeah, there. Part of my happy ending today is about new battery discovery that is, that was made a couple of years ago, but is finally reaching commercial distribution and it's changing the very nature of like the electrification, not only of cars, but also storage from other sources. So if you do have nuclear power or those kind of things, or you have wind or any other renewables, you can store the power longer and safer, starting late this year. And that's the end of the necessity of coal plants, for example, all throughout Europe. Like that's the trend. They're going to, if you're going to start dismantling them now and using either nuclear and renewables, you will now have a storage option that can last. That's going to be a huge part of the conversation going forward. And Russia's not a part of that. And it is counter to their business model if it does take off. So they're just and they're forcibly being left behind. It's the same as Trump's drill baby drill at the absolute last hour of oil's usage on the planet. We'll take a break in a minute. John, are you streaming at the end of the show today? Are you
not today?
Okay. All right. Good. I just want to clarify that. And don't forget, my live stream is on 5 days a week in the afternoons. Phil joins me in the morning show. I do Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 9 a.m. Pacific. Phil's on with me on the Wednesday show, and it's he's allowed to swear. So sometimes we get a little more of a frank discussion about this stuff there than we can do on the air here. But covering the latest updates as well. We're committed to that. Until this resolves in one way or another. We'll be back right after this.
Choose views.
Choose views.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to find the latest on the oil numbers in terms of Russia and the like. I don't want to be too, because some of this, because it's been going on so long. If you look up like Russian economy terrible, there's articles going back a couple of years. This is not something new. And the same thing is true of even their oil production. So do this in 1 second as well. This is go back to here. Okay. Publish. Back to live mode. Okay, here. There we go. And yeah. So Trump responded. Obviously, he allegedly spoke to Xi Jinping and again about Ukraine as well because of the strikes in Kyiv. Just absurd.
Which may have been the point.
What do you mean?
GPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Oh yes, right. That's why they did it.
Back to Hal Sparks on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So one of the biggest attacks on Kyiv that happened, the one that worried a lot of us about its proximity to Phil, not because because he's a friend of the show and because he's a friend of ours, but it happened while Trump was in China, and he had he was made to respond. He was asked a question on the return when he was flying back, and he's caught between sort of like muscle memory answers and new information. So that's the way his brain, like saying the same thing that he said forever, including, I think it'll be settled very quickly. And he's been saying that since, he said, at least that's a shift, I suppose, because he originally said he could settle it very quickly with one phone call. And now he's like, I think it can be settled very quickly years later, whatever. But he goes, it's one that we'd like to see settled. Yeah. Unlike last night, it was looking good, like they haven't been attacking this whole time. But the Ukrainians, took a big hit last night. So it's going to happen, the end of the war, but it's a shame. Brilliant. Just a true statesman of the highest order. That was the direct quote from him aboard Air Force One as he was flying to Anchorage, Alaska, to go look at the baby drilling that they're doing there. I think it's like it's just drill baby drills is the new thing, because they're just doing little drilling everywhere that doesn't amount. Yeah, a boo. I think they're just, it's exploratory drilling. They're not really finding anything, but it's baby drilling. They're drill baby drills. And do we have any more questions, Johnny, before I go off on my next diatribe? Okay, what do we got?
Got a question from Gino Maynard. Please ask Phil about the Ursa Major incident in 2024 off Spain's coast, where Russia tried to give North Korea 2 nuclear submarine reactors for sending soldiers to Ukraine. Is that a real story?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think we will know. I don't think we will know. I know that's been. I know that's been floating around. That story.
No pun intended. It's been sinking around because apparently the idea was that they were going to send these reactors they were going to trade these reactors, these submarine reactors, to North Korea, and they mysteriously sank. Somebody sank them, and if you've seen Hunt for the Red October, I think that's where everybody's brain goes in the middle of this. But the theory is they were carrying these reactors, but the ship sank, so they never arrived.
Two nuclear reactors being sunk in the Atlantic off the coast of Spain would not go unnoticed. I find that entire story highly,
beyond measure.
Skeptical. Very skeptical about that story.
It seems like it's a cross between one of those stories where Russia's like trying to scare everyone into it's like that.
And they already have nuclear reactors. The Koreans already have reactors. That's part of the problem.
I think this is the issue, is that they're sub-reactors so that they can get nuclear sub technology. So the idea is that it would allow North Korea, in concert with Russia, to park nuclear subs off our coast. Hence the Golden Dome. There's almost more of an argument here, if you're in a conspiratorial propagandistic mindset. There's more of an argument here that the U.S. cooked up this story, namely not us, but the Trump administration, to justify the spending on the Golden Dome, which has been a big. As soon as he got back, that was what he was mainly beating his chest about. And the story was, 5 days ago, CNN was doing a story on this, so it's fresh in everybody's mind at the White House, and it seems like this could have been part of that strategy. Is we got to justify the spending on the Golden Dome, and if a nuclear sub-empowered North Korea might give us more reason to need the Golden Dome around the West Coast and build all these things in Alaska and take Greenland and blah, 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 blah. So as much as it sounds like Russian propaganda, which goes along with this sort of mutual assured destruction argument that they always make, which is if you don't let us beat somebody up, we'll shoot somebody else. We'll throw a grenade if you don't let us beat this kid up. That's been their attitude about their nukes. Not, we should never get there, but if you push us and you try to stop us, we'll use nukes. That's always been their kind of fallback in the mutual assured destruction gameplay. And the same thing could kind of be true of, that the understood is that this was part of the story, is that they're going to give nuclear subs to North Korea and they'll buddy up on us. And then you watch yourself. If you try to mess with us, we in crazy North Korea are going to park our missiles off your coast, and that'll be that. Right. And so on the one hand, it could be the White House just drumming up a fake story, or blowing it up, through an intel lie, fake intel, essentially. Or it could be the Russians, lying themselves, maybe not delivering to North Korea because they can't.
Yeah, and there's also, I think this has to be said as well. There is going to be a massive propaganda campaign over the next 6 months to a year, or whatever it takes, as the awareness, even the awareness within the Kremlin that they're not going to get much more out of this militarily. Mm-hmm. So they have already started, and I've seen it all over the place. and it's getting bigger, and it will get worse. That there's going to be a huge propaganda, getting into the media and spreading conspiracy theories and lies, and they're going to go big on this because they know that if they can make the Ukrainians the bad guys, and that all of this could have been avoided if X, Y, or Z had actually happened. That's why we see Putin talking about Istanbul again. We see a disgruntled former member of Zelensky's cabinet who is getting very odd support from somewhere we don't know. Going on Tucker Carlson and all this talk of like, Zelensky is buying up more property in America than anybody else in the world, which, I mean, if that were true, alarm bells would go off all over the place. It wouldn't be a conspiracy hush hush. Ooh, what they're really not telling you is this. It would be inescapable.
Everywhere. Yeah. It also is a great cover story for Trump coming back from China and allowing China to buy more land in the United States, which is part of his accidental announcement that he made about the deal, about the kind of factories and jobs and stuff they're going to do, and $1 trillion in the U.S. economy. Part of that is facilities here that the Chinese companies are going to build, which are all 51% owned by the CCP, if not more. This is, by the way, for the record, the Ursa Major is a real ship, and it really did sink, and it was torpedoed. Specifically, the belief is that and the storyline that's floating around is that the West had something to do with it. Us or the Europeans sank it. And if it had 2 nuclear reactors on it, those have obviously, you would sink it in an area where you could retrieve them in secret is the theory. But either way, it could have very well been the Russians sinking their own ship just to make it look like this big scandal.
Sure.
Like, oh my God, the West is sinking.
But there are also so many civilian monitors that if 2 nuclear sub engines or reactors went down,
see them from
there are enough
space with our sensors.
There are enough. And again, there are civilian monitors for this. So it also, by the way, I'll just say it's another thing that after studying Russian propaganda techniques over the last 30 years, it's just that story to me, you're right. Maybe they sunk it themselves because, so they could have this story. There's so much to it that stinks of the half-truths and the outright lies and the disinformation. It's the bioweapons story that we saw. They first tried it in Georgia during the 2008 war. Then they tried it here. Then the thing is about the Kremlin and the GRU is actually, if you really do a little bit more digging, a lot of these fall apart almost immediately because they say, all these biochem locations. Well, what they're doing is using UN numbers. They'll quote UN numbers or, international body or IAEA numbers or, whatever it is they want to do and they want to attack on. But in the biochem thing, it's anything that has biohazard. Maternity wards have biohazard. It's anywhere there's human waste. And so then what they do is they take that number from the UN and say there are X amount of sites in, take your pick. It was, as I say, they tried it in Georgia in 2008, and they did it here in Ukraine as well. But if you look, those numbers are because there's bio waste. It's not biochemical warfare. Not every single place that has biohazard warnings is a bioweapons, a secret bioweapons lab. If you spend enough time around these stories with the Russians and how they conduct themselves, it's the AIDS was created by the CIA.
The story is hilarious because the idea is that it was hit by a supercavitating torpedo that is a U.S. NATO one. Like, that was the story that seems like the first story that came out of it. Then the Russians, because it had a military escort, the Russian ship that was going along with it told the Spanish to stay away while they came in to rescue. The Spanish sent out their Coast Guard effectively to like save the soldiers and get people off the sinking ship in their waters. And the Russians told them to stay away. And then there were 4 more explosions. The Russians have said it was a terrorist act, whatever that means, from the inside of the ship. 2 soldiers or 2 crew members were killed near the engine room, which was sealed shut for some reason. Right? Anyway, so it sinks to the bottom of the sea. And then the Russians came in with one of their boats afterwards, and there were 4 more explosions on the seabed. Like, they sent people down to explode the thing. The U.S. has sent a nuke sniffer airplane that circled in the area to check on it and to make sure that that wasn't the case. There doesn't seem to be a report from our side that that's what had happened. I would have thought it would have made big news, except for Trump running interference. If our nuke sniffers actually saw something and just thought, we got it, it's not going anywhere, but we wouldn't take credit for hitting it. And if Trump's relationship with Russia would be completely scuttled if this looks like, if this scandal was able to be revealed to the world. So I can see why he would protect, if this was real, the details from coming out. Either way, though, it was a civilian ship with a clearance to carry atomic materials, which again could be everything from a nuclear missile components to MRI machines, right? It's the entire scope of those things. It did have a military escort, but that's not surprising either in this situation. It was supposedly empty, which is odd. It looks like, which is what made people think it was even more hinky. And then once it went to the seafloor, they apparently detonated something else or blew up something else, or something else in it exploded. The whole thing is super hinky, but it doesn't bode well, all of it, for Trump and his relationship with Vladimir Putin and the North Koreans and all that kind of stuff. And so I imagine in the books that are written about this time, were we to all survive, there would be, there'll be a chapter on Trump's wig out, hammering the Diet Coke button while yelling about Vladimir Putin not giving him the win that he promised him during the campaign. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with more Philip Bittner and Johnny Million, our questions from the chat room. Slava Ukraine. We'll be back.
Children were their call.
Yeah, they're I want to see if I can find. Yeah, here it is. I got a picture of this. This is a ship when it was leaving, and the weird part about it was that it's got a military escort, but it was empty. That was what made everybody's shackles, their hackles spring up. It gave them the hair on the back of their neck. It warmed their cockles. I don't know. But the point being is that and then it was the story initially from everybody else, from the Russians particularly, was that it must have been this supercavitating torpedo from the West that is what sank it. And then they were like, nah, actually it was terrorism, which is like, terrorists on your own boat that left your ship to go to North Korea with a military it's par for the course. It's straight up snafu, right?
Yeah. I'm just kind of catching up on the miniseries Chernobyl, which I never actually watched when it came out. But I mean, it shows how not just Soviet, but how Moscow manages information warfare and things like that. I mean, the message is not to be questioned, and even though in your face,
this is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Okay, so one of the things that I do think is a happy ending, and I do want to bring this up because until the world stops spinning, I am going to assume it intends to spin on. Nick Fury style. There is a company there's a Norwegian company that's been working on sodium battery technology, which is again cheaper and more resilient than lithium ion and has longer life and stuff. But before it was kind of like nuclear fusion for a while. It was one of those things that was always on the horizon, but never quite made. And then these huge advances happened in the last year, by and large because of AI in the science arena. And now there are 3 companies, CATL being the biggest one, which is a Chinese company that's knocking these things out like crazy, which just signed a big contract that is with a company called Hyperstrong, which is so very Elon Musk. It's like it's like he gives them their name for everything in English these days. He's their primary like douchebag English translator. Yeah. But these batteries specifically, they don't require lithium, which is hard to find, not impossible. And right about the time, by the way, America discovered it, the largest lithium deposit in North America, which is in the Salton Sea. And so at a certain point, if we were going to do our own lithium ion batteries here in the States, we have plenty. Okay. The same thing is true of potash in Michigan. They found this big deposit. Eventually that will make it unnecessary for us to get any potash from Russia, for example. And the rest of it, we can make a version of fertilizer from the petroleum that's made in, that's drilled out in the United States. So we're basically cutting off our need for these other things. But one of the biggest problems we had with renewables was solar's great, but it only works when the sun is shining. Wind is great, but only when the wind is blowing. All these, right? That's what you hear. So you have to store it somehow. But the problem is a lithium ion battery, if it's breached, catches fire, and it's a terrible fire. It's the kind of fire, that's why the Chinese EVs, the BYD company, which is the biggest EV company in China, that they jokingly call them burn your driveway, because if you can get an fender bender in one of these things and 2 days later they will burst into this unquenchable flame that will eat your apartment building. It's happened multiple times. And so that's another reason why the Chinese are trying to get out of the lithium business as well, because it's all but ruined the expansion of their EV market. Here come the sodium batteries. Now, we got the NCM batteries with your nickel cadmium. Those are great, but they're slow charging and they're heavy. But the sodium ones are lighter. And in deference to Trump's whining in Iowa when he was on the campaign trail, they work at negative 50 degrees Celsius. You could start a vehicle from it in absolute cold. So unlike lithium-ion batteries, which you need a secondary starter for in those kind of situations, they will work in very cold environments. So hello, Canada. Hello, northern parts of Europe and North America. So this shift alone, and the availability of these things, moving into homes, moving into cars, and moving into these data centers as their way of storing renewable energy, will be a game changer over the next year and a half. Again, it was a wish last year, but they're going to market. They're already to market now, but they're mass producing, later this year. The orders have already been filled. It's like 60 gigawatts of battery stuff that's coming out. And that's just the CATL. That's just the Chinese company. There are 3 Northern European countries that are also working on this technology who invented it in the first place before it was surreptitiously stolen by the Chinese and duplicated, but whatever. Look, if it's moving us down that road, I think everybody thinks that this is the best part of it. Like, if the user interface, we'll make our own chips, thank you very much. But as far as batteries go, awesome. And sodium is very abundant. So these will be cheaper, safer. They use a gel, not a liquid. So you can literally slice one of these things in half and it will not discharge and start a fire, which in a car would be a good thing. And also, at their current phase, the size of the platter of batteries that would go in a car, they can do about 900 miles in theory. They have, again, this is all they're going to be put in vehicles later in the year. But right now, the physics works, the batteries themselves work. It's just a matter of chaining them together and building them into a car, which always takes a little while for insurance purposes and all that other stuff. If you're going to sell that battery pack to the companies in the United States that use those battery packs and Europe, whether you're going to sell Chinese cars is immaterial. The plates of these batteries are going to replace the lithium ion ones. This is a huge jump forward in clean energy, and it's going to make Trump very angry because it justifies solar in homes much faster, because now you can put one of those in your garage and you don't have to worry about if you bump into it with your car, it's going to burn your house down while you're at work or while your family's asleep, which has been the big fear about the Tesla batteries, which, by the way, are a bunch of rechargeable AA's chained together in an array, just for the record, which is ridiculous. So that is my singular piece of good news in that regard. It also means it's coming to all of your electronics. Lithium ion batteries in a phone, that's, if it overheats or whatever, that's a problem. I had crap batteries in my MP3 player that I bought in China when I was over there visiting in in one of my first trips, and it started to get hot in my pocket, and I took it out and it caught fire while I was holding it, and I dropped it on the ground and let it burn on the asphalt, and it was insane. And the fact that it was in my pocket, or if it had been on my nightstand when that happened, I'd been a dead man. So this matters. And what it matters for is it's happening at the exact time there's demand destruction around oil. Because the price of oil going up, one of the secondary effects of it is people are done. By and large, Europe has moved on. It's one of the reasons why they're welcoming Chinese cars in, is because they are just shifting to electric. We're done with this part of it. Jay Leno just drove or rode in one of the Tesla electric semis on a little cross-country trip that will be used. Now, whether they'll be automated or not is immaterial. I don't think many people are for automated semis on American roads, but the electric ones would be better. And if these things ended up having a double plate of those sodium batteries, where if they were, God forbid, in an accident, they would not start a cascading fire that would burn for hours and hours and hours at a super high intense rate, I think the chances of the American people going, okay, 900 miles of range won't burn my house down, I'm in. And right about the time oil is $100 a barrel and going up and becoming a boutique fuel. And that's bad for Russia. That's really bad for Russia, because they left the technology game a long time ago, folks. They were, and again, I'm still dubious about their space program, but they definitely had some level of when they were working with us and other people, they got some good stuff up there, even if the beginnings of their system were a lie. They definitely made some advances, and then they just left it. They just let it die on the vine. What electronics do you have in your house that are Russian made or had a Russian genesis? Nothing. I have Russian lenses on some of my cameras that are lead-lined glass, and so they bokeh really specifically or whatever, but they're from 16 millimeter surveillance cameras that the USSR had put everywhere, and now they switched to digital. So they had boxes and boxes and boxes of these lenses that when they took these cameras apart, and they sell them on eBay in packs. And if you want to do some, Lomo photography, you can buy a chunk of these things and with an adapter slap them on your camera, and they're all individual, and you can buy 20 of them, and some of them are moldy, and you just throw them out and you go, okay, this one looks pretty, I'll keep that if you're a specialty photographer. That's it. That is the only thing I can think of. And it was from the surveillance of their own citizens. So, right. And even their nuclear reactors, and I don't get me started on their weapons, haven't made any advances in the last certainly 15 years in any major way. And I like the idea, if you were North Korea, do you really want their subnuclear reactors? I mean, I guess they're better than nothing. But maybe the North Koreans sank it rather than take it, so they can go, you just give us the money. It's hard to say. So there's my good piece of news is that technology is advancing in such a way that it is going to hurt the resource capitalists of the world, the people who are only rich because they're standing on a deposit of something that you need them to get to, which is the worst kind of capitalism that exists. It's not constructive. It's not inventive. It is simply like, if you want it, you got to come through me. And increasingly, because of Ukraine, that also applies to arms sales. Used to be, right? The U.S., maybe the Israelis a little bit, certainly the Russians and the Chinese that's where you got your weapons from. You know, you bought them through them, or in the case of, I guess, Iran, there was this kind of reciprocal relationship with Russia. But now you can be in the drone business in 24 hours. You know, if you just start 3D printing them and throwing some low-res circuit boards in there, you're off to the races. It's a brave new world in that area. So what else does Russia do? Vodka and prostitution? I mean, it seems like that's their fallback industry. Can you feed an entire economy on honeypots? Philip Ittner, the question of the day.
All they have is the ability to rip stuff out of the ground and sell it. Inventiveness is at a bare minimum. I mean, they made some advances on drone technology here in the war, but most of it was reactionary to what the Ukrainians were doing. So they were advancing their drone program based as a reaction to Ukraine's advances. So by and large, so that's all they have left. They tried making a Silicon Valley. They tried making their own kind of like IT industry based in a city, and it failed horribly because the second anybody got any talent or stood out, they were headhunted by somebody in the West, and they were like, "I'm out of here, bye," because it sucks living in Russia. So, yeah.
We're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we are. Bye. Okay, sorry. Check out the live stream. Don't forget, Johnny Million has a show. It's Johnny Million. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Chicago. I got so carried away with that story. It's one of my favorites. I got to nerd out. Thanks, Chicago.
You look and sound great, Phil.
All right, guys.
Everybody's talking about the majesty of your beard, by the way. It just grows all the time.
Time for a trim.
I don't know. I think once did he leave us? Did he freeze out or leave us? I think he's got a future as the official Santa Claus of Michigan when he comes back. He'll have to gain some weight because he's more like the sort of like the buff Viking version of Saint Nick.
We must have fattened you up.
Yes, right. We got to fatten you up, and then it goes. So and he froze up on it. So I'm going to let him go there, and it'll just be me and Johnny Million for a split second. And you got a big day ahead of you, I have no doubt.
Well, we got to figure out what's going on next week.
Okay, so let's settle this right here while I've got you on the air with me or whatever. What song, Johnny Million, in your own greatness, would you like to play if you could play your dream Van Halen song?
I can already kind of play Panama.
Oh, well, that's true of everybody who plays Panama. Right? Because that,
where's the one?
Oh, yeah. Well, we do the same live cheat that they did live, which is you leave off the first trigger, and then the second drum hit is actually the first. So you just don't hit it, and it doesn't give you that kind of weird Eddie, or the shuffle part of it right at the beginning. So I think we could probably do that, and certainly we could trade off. And if you guys wanted to solo an extended version of that, I think that's a great way to go.
That might be fun. What do you guys tune to? E flat?
We're album tuning. I insist. So
okay.
Whatever that is. I'm fairly certain, on the Dave stuff, that's E flat. Yeah. So I believe. Hold on one second. You're all cut off, so I'm going to fix that. It's bothering me now. So I want it to be like we're in the same room. Oh my God! It's Johnny Million. Chuck. No. All right. We should do the show like this from now on. Just you kind of down, boy. I'm sorry. There you go. Wah. So, yeah. Let's see. Where would be good in the set or whatever? Do you know any of the Van Hagar songs at all? They're a little easier, especially on the learnage.
Yeah, I know. I think I kind of know Summer Nights.
Okay. That might be a good trade-up because we have to do that little switch over. You know, that for the clean part at the beginning of it or whatever, and then he has to...
Oh, because that's got all that...
Yeah, right.
I call that Caleb's part.
Yes, right. Exactly. And then you could come in with the regular part of it, and then he could jump in. It'd give him a second to switch over. Normally what happens is he's got a capo on it, and then I go over there and he cues me when he needs to pull it off, and then I always pretend to do it too early. Yeah. So that's a great possibility. I like that idea. Okay. I will discuss it with everybody else. And then I'm trying to think of what does Caleb not like to play? You could just you could learn I'll Wait and because that's my favorite Van Halen song.
That's a really good one. There's not a ton of guitar in it though. I think just the solo, right?
Well, there's a guitar part in it. I mean, there's a rhythm guitar part in it or whatever that's kind of doubled over the keyboard part. And I think Walter Eno is joining us from the band Survivor, of course, and other things. Walter's a lovely dude. He plays with us at a jam sometimes. Great guy. He's going to be playing with us in Pittsburgh, I think. But I don't know if he'll make it to the Chicago thing or not. But so we have our tracks for the keyboard parts. You know, we have a keyboard player who's got social anxiety.
Sure, you can't see him
because we're nerds. So he hides. You know, his mom doesn't want him on camera because it's just bad for she thinks fame will destroy him. So that's basically what we use. But the rhythm parts on it or whatever, and then it's got kind of a short solo. You're right, and it's tracked, so it's the timing of it is very specific, unlike the other ones.
Yeah.
Maybe like Ice Cream Man. Yeah. Oh, there's so much to do. We'll talk about it. We'll figure this out, and then you know what? You know what we need to do? I think this would be a good idea.
Cool.
Get you and Caleb and me on a guitar Zoom and stream it, and talk about what we'd like to do. That'd be fun. We obviously won't be able to play together because of the timing. You and I tried that a couple of times, and that doesn't work.
Someday, one day.
It's so sad. One day the internet will be so fast. Yep. But in the meantime, we'll figure something out. Like I like Panama so far. I'll run that by him, and that's at a good place in the set as well. It's near the end of the show, so
this Summer Nights is a maybe.
Yeah, and we're doing Runaround as well now, which is really fun.
Oh, I actually have kind of learned that one.
All right. Well, so has Caleb, so that works.
Okay.
And that's some notes, man, singing wise.
I can't imagine.
It's, you know what? The hard part's going back to Dave after singing in head voice. Because once you get in that zone, you're kind of okay. As long as you keep in technique and you sing high and you stay there. But you go to the kind of stuff. Then you're like, oh God. It's like doing my Alex Jones impersonation. Like I cannot do it on a singing week. Do not. It's terrible. And Top of the World is the same way. It's like the equivalent of a Dave song. The notes are very high. That's not the problem. It's the same note. Like it's so, it's that same note multiple times, and it's just like, you can feel the tension creeping up in your throat chorus by chorus. Of course, Vic can sing like a bird. I want to beat him to death with his own bass because he never has a problem. But he's also not singing the rest of the show, so I guess that there's a little bit of a break there. That's always the thing. Like background vocal, like
it is. Yeah, I'm a great background vocal. I can sing really high background vocals for a few seconds.
Well, then we might bring you in on that. That'd be a thing.
Oh golly.
Oh yeah. Now I've got some ideas too. You can, especially on on maybe whatever the song right before that is. If it's a Sammy, Now you got my gears turning. All right, I'm gonna let you go. Otherwise, we'll be doing this all
think
day.
about it.
You're awesome. Yeah, float around,
You.
noodle a little bit on your, if you feel like it, and go, oh, you know what? I would love to do this. This would be really fun. Even if it's one out of the box that we don't normally do, we can do all or a piece of it or something like that. It would be kind of fun.
Okay.
Along with one whole song.
Yeah. I'll futz around.
I love you and I trust you and you're wonderful and I'm so lucky to have you as a friend and I appreciate you as a human being and as a talent. Period. End of story. Full stop. No limits. It's true. It's true. All right. I'll see you later. All right. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. And chat room. Hi guys. Welcome. Good to see you. I figure I'll just chit chat with you guys for just one moment as it starts to populate. Also, I wanted to thank Jerry for the super chat. Slava Ukraine, thank you. Hi, Hal and Johnny, be well and prosper. We definitely will try. And then Angela, thanks. You called into Fugelsang's show last night and told him that you spent most of your show earlier that evening playing a Trump video game because you figured there was no point in discussing Trump's humiliation in China, which is pretty true. I mean, ultimately, there was the game itself was pretty humiliating. And I have to say, I was a little unnerved. Why is the chat not populating? It's very strange. You silly thing. Sometimes when it doesn't want to load when I leave camera, I'll go to this. Don't forget, we're at the Celestia Theater next week. We got to fill that place. So this is new. And Kiefer Sutherland just canceled some of his shows because of poor ticket sales. That'll never stop us. But, gas prices are a thing and it's affecting whether people go to shows and that kind of stuff. So if it's the one show you're going to see in Wadsworth, Ohio, make it this one. All right. Let's see if the chat starts working and populating in there again. It takes a moment sometimes. If not, I'll just go to the chat on my other comms screen. That'll be all right. Unless I got kicked off the air and I don't even know it. Maybe I'm just streaming to no one. Trucker John will be on. Excellent. We'll throw to him. Yeah, we got 1,300 people just in the one stream. Yeah, hit the like. We need 60 more likes to hit 1,000. Hal's Getty and Harriet scares my cat. Well, the face of Harriet scares everyone's animals. And yeah. Angular Merkin, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then did I get this one? And does Tetris count? I don't know what that was in reference to, but yes, it always does. Okay, good. I'm up. There we go. See, now it populates after a moment. The struggle is real, folks. This is live streaming thing. I've started using Ecamm more regularly than OBS because of some of the stuff that's allowing me to do, namely that you could finally stream vertically and horizontally on that. That was the big one because I like a lot of the ability to put chats on screen and all that kind of stuff. But it costs money. So, all right. Anyways, Wyoming. Try video.ninja for no audio delay. We've tried that. I did Video Ninja as my guest thing for a while, and it got really quirky. It's supposedly you can have like 99 guests or some nonsense, and then so I ended up using what was working for a while was that I would have Ecamm, this software, open and use the guest part, but not broadcast with it. I would broadcast through OBS and bring the guests into that because I could only stream vertically that way. Thank you, Sabrina, for the frowny faces. We need more of those on Facebook. Remember, Facebook, the only way you can really help me is angry, terrible emojis. Keeper Sutherland plays music? Of course he does. Yes, he's got his own little band thing that he does. Audio is totally out of sync there. Maybe refresh your page on Twitch. Is that a thing on Twitch right now? Everywhere? Does anyone in Nerdhalen dress like DLR, like assless chaps? Well, I do, but not on stage. Does that count? I have, and by the way, all chaps are assless. It just depends on what you're wearing underneath. Chaps are also crotchless. That's the nature of chaps. I have a great pair of chaps. Yeah. Please, yeah, hit the like, guys. Let's see. I think we can do it. I know we can. We hit 90,000 this week. Come on. We hit 90,000 subscribers on YouTube. Been a long time coming. Yeah, Keanu Reeves' band Dogstar is touring. He's a solid bass player. And again, some of it's just Habit. Just play, man. Just play. And I have a ass chaps. Yes, ass chaps would be leather pants, I think. Yeah? Yeah. Chaps my ass makes no sense. Of course it does. It's more about callousing your ass from riding on a saddle a lot. So you end up with a chapped ass because you're getting calluses from sitting and riding. That's where that comes from. And it's not a comfortable thing. I would assume. I've never had a chapped ass before. But when will Nerd Halen come back to Dallas, Texas? That's a good question. Sometimes I wonder if my stream hurts us in certain states. But when in reality, when I do like news programs, like I did a radio interview in Akron to promote the show there, and they barely knew. I mean, one of the hosts was a fan, I guess, of the live stream. But yeah, by and large, I did it. Yay! Yes, that's right. 1,000 likes. All right, look at that. Now I feel like I got to stick around and do something. Thank you, Chris. See, that's how it's done. On Facebook, you got to give it angry emojis. And they have not just the ones that are in the chat, but you know how they have them on the messaging thing up the top where you can click on it? Kind of like in iMessage when you could put a heart or something on someone else's message if you don't feel like typing. How old is Keeper now? Designated Survivors has its own channel on cable. Yes, right. There's a bunch of those shows. They've got enough episodes just run 24/7. When are we coming to New Jersey? It's such a good question. We need to do the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Boston, DC route. That's got to happen. I'm hoping the fall. Our booker's really doing great. He put this together. Hey, when you redeem ad time, what do you get? I just get the bits instead of the ad rev, I think. Honestly, I don't pay nearly as much attention to that stuff as I should. Because I'm more focused on doing the show for you guys than selling the show. You guys know this. I have had to create my own prattle to try and remind people to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a jackass every time I say it. Other people don't have this problem, clearly. There's no shame in it, but it's just odd. I've always been better at doing the thing than selling the thing. It's just been my nature. And I recognize that it's a thing, and I don't have a problem when other people do it, so I don't know why I have a problem doing it myself, but it always just feels clunky. Will you come to Philly? Absolutely. I would love to come to Philly. One of the best Masonic lodges I've ever been in is the one in Philly, the Grand Lodge. It allows us to run ads when we desire instead of Twitch doing it on its own. That's true. Yes. Yeah, so it punts it. Yeah, Kiefer's only 3 years older than me. You know, it helps to have a famous dad when you're trying to get into acting. Don't get me started. I've missed a little bit on the Saturday show. I don't get as many maggots calling me a C-lister or a D-lister, which again, I would like to say that I find hilarious considering they think to become an A-lister, you have to eat a baby. And so I don't know why they feel like they would be insulting people that you're not an A-lister. Well, let's be clear. To get famous, I would not be willing to eat a baby. I'm not going to do it. All right. I'm not going to Diddy parties. I'm not going to look the other way if I see a Weinstein or Cosby thing happening. Not going to do it. And if it costs me work and it means I have to be a blue collar actor my entire life, then so be it. So I still don't understand why they think that's an insult. Any ideas? She's looking at playing Scranton Cultural Center, which is an old Masonic lodge down the street from Biden's childhood home. That's a great idea. That is a great idea. Come on, Hal. Just one little. No, nope. You're on my A-list, Hal. No baby eating. Thank you. That's the real A-list. No more baby drill. Yeah. Maybe that's what Trump is talking about with the drill baby drill. The first drill is just repetitive out of habit, but what he really means is he's baby drilling. They're drilling for babies. He's joined the elite. He's part of the deep state now, according to Tucker and the rest of these dipshits. Yo, you can pay to be quiet like Trump. Yeah. Thanks, Swanson. I try, you know. And again, I like it. That always amazes me that they think, yeah, better. The insult has been needs to be countered with better to be a has been than it ever was. But the interesting thing is, you can tell how these people think about careers and the like, that they think stuff is over, and maybe this is part of the definition versus job title thing when it comes to art, right? All the painters I know are painters. They don't paint. They are painters. I don't sing. I'm a singer. I don't do stand up. I am a stand up. I don't act. I'm an actor. It's an identity. It's more than a job. It's an adventure. But the point is that a lot of actors, wait tables or whatnot. They're still actors, right? There's been a bunch of people who've had real bad dips. Look at John Travolta at one point. That's why they say, when Tarantino brought him back, like, you've been Travolted, which means brought back out of absolute, obscurity after being up there, right? I got to tell you, like, I don't know. That's just, I guess, other people trying to tell you something's over, like they have any control over it. Like, do you think any of these people liked my work on Queer as Folk? You know what I mean? You're not on that show anymore, because nobody is, because it's not on anymore, because we ran our contract. It's interesting. Let's see, maybe Elite Force, but I don't know how long their contract was. And it was mainly with the kids. So yeah, I've never been on a canceled show. I've never had a show canceled. I've always run out my contract. I've always done the whole run. Yeah. It's also why I've turned down a few things over the last couple of years, because they're 5 and 7 year contracts. And I'm like, I'm not going to get locked into that for 5 to 7 years. And also I'm not going to get used to something that I am not that committed to. And then it goes away because for the very reason I didn't want to do it in the first place, and then rely on it. I don't know. But again, I know I'm very, I don't know, talented. No, I'm but very fortunate. Specifically in that, because I don't just do one thing, hence the polyglot rune that I made as my emblem. That I've never had the wait by the phone thing that a lot of actors get tortured by. And I've never also felt rejected by jobs I didn't get, because there's so many moving parts. I've produced and written and directed and stuff. And so I know that a lot of the choices, it isn't even sometimes about the best performance in that situation, but the person who fits best into the cast or works with people better or has another talent that they're going to use later. There's so many other things, or the funding falls out and the project goes away and all that kind of stuff. So voiceover work would be fun. It is fun. I did Tack and the Power of Juju. That was a 3-year show that took 5 years. Would I do a White Chicks? I don't know how I would do that, because that was 2 black actors playing white women, right? So no, I guess. Why? Thank you, Tracy. I'm very proud of that spot. That was, that was because of a fan, by the way. Can I just say that? I got Spider-Man 2 because of a fan. A fan told me about the audition. They're like, hey, they had this part cast in New York, and then they took another actor and used it. So they're recasting this in LA for the part that they're doing there, for some of the scenes that they're doing on the soundstage at Sony. And you should get your agent to go in, because I know you're a big Spider-Man fan. And I called my agent at the time, and I said, I want to go in on this, comedy scene in Spider-Man 2. It's like, and they're like, it's a one scene, right? And I was like, are you kidding? It's a Sam Raimi film. He is my favorite living director, period. I love Sam. I love his work, and I love his attitude, and I love his charm. And, and I love Bruce Campbell's work. And I'm like, I mean, come on. So, and they were like, nah. And I was like, I never make you guys do anything. I'm making you do this. Get me the audition. And they were like, all right. They really, and by the way, I wasn't with them much longer after I got this because I was fed up and I moved on to somebody else. What was it like working with Sam? He was a sweetheart. He and Toby tried to play what they thought was a prank on me because I had a goat at the time and I was going to shave it for the show. And both of them came over and they were like looking at me going, I don't know about the thing or whatever. Like they were both making a judgment about my looks or something like that. And I knew I was going to shave it off. And I was also like, guys, I see, I mean, this is not working out the way you thought it was. Like I can see through this. This is adorable. This isn't going to be a thing. Just say this. You can maybe prank me other ways or something, but this is not gonna. Guys, this is not gonna work. They were lovely though, and Toby is a good guy, and he did a lot of work with Heal the Bay, so I would run into him at that. But when I went in on this audition, it was because Chicago, Second City, love the place, best acting school in the world, besides my teacher Suzanne Adams at New Trier, who gave me my work ethic and the actual tools that I use. The best actual scene work stuff that I ever did was at Second City, which is, stay in character, pay attention to the scene and what it's about, and listen. And those are the most important things you need as an actor. The rest is hit your mark and bark, right? So for me, like I was sitting there and you could hear the audition through the wall. And there was no script. I've told this story before, but if you haven't heard it, enjoy. And I'm sitting there, I could hear the auditions through the wall. And there was like 9 people in there with me, auditioning. Whew. And every single person, they're like, okay, here's the thing. They come out and tell you in the room, like all the actors are together. Okay, here's the scene, guys. You're in an elevator and Spider-Man walks in and we're just gonna improv what your reaction would be. And every single person who went in before me, because there was only one person left, I think, after I auditioned. I could hear them through the wall. I could hear their audition, and it was all, wow, Spider-Man in the elevator. What are you doing in this elevator? Spider-Man, you're in an elevator. What are you doing in an elevator, Spider-Man? Spider-Man in an elevator. Like, it was so bad. It made me mad. I was angry when I went into the audition, which, by the way, has helped me in several auditions and things that I've gotten, where I'm mad that casting or the producers aren't getting a worthwhile performance. Like, I don't give a shit if I get this, but I'm mad that you guys are having to sit through this garbage. It's so weird. True story. Sounds like Brewer. He may have been there. I'm not going to say. But anyways, so I go in there and I'm like, okay, I got 3 versions. One is completely silent. One is this long form character idea. And then one is just closer to the kind of interplay that I think you guys were talking about. And so if you watch Spider-Man 2.1, it's the long version of the scene that I did when I auditioned, which was pitching my guy as a publicity representative to try and get him more, TV and sponsorships and stuff like that. That's where I went. So I haven't watched the Martin Short special because I know it's going to break my heart. So I will, but I'm going to watch it soon. Summer and I are going to watch it together, but I just love him so much. Anyways, so I gave him 3 different versions. All 3 versions are slapped together in the version that's in the original movie and in 2.1. In 2.1, it's like, whatever, 2 minutes of new footage. 90 seconds of that 2 minutes is me blathering my shit out in the longer form of the story. And then it became this thing because I'm blessed. And I don't want to scare people, but casting people, producers, if you don't use me, you're dooming your project. It's out of my hands. It's something in the universe I have no control over. I'm just saying, if you want what you're doing to be pivotal, important, life-changing, bring me in. But if you try to make it that way without me, it's not going to be good. Some things I just don't go in on, and they're life-changing and wonderful on their own. I'm not saying I'm required for that, but if you do bring me in and you don't use me, it's not going to be good for your project. And again, it's not because I'm going to do anything. It's just God will hate you. So anyways, so I'm in, that scene, like Sam Raimi said something about like that was his favorite scene in the movie at one point, and that was that. Is Facebook on Hal's chat screen? Yes, it is, Pam. Hi, Pam. Yes, all my shows should be still on. The only thing that might change next week is that if I have sound check because of East Coast, West Coast time, if I have sound check around when my show would normally be on, but I'm going to try. Okay. Love the narcissistic Al Sparks. I got to say, it's not really even about talent at this point. It's just that I live a blessed life. And I'm here to do good in the world, and those that help me will be rewarded. So anyway, so I do this, and the funniest part of it all for me, the most ironic, not the funniest, but the most ironic part was that the reason I love Sam Raimi is because he's known for putting a camera on a broomstick on a tripod and shoving it in an actor's face, so you get these like weird shots, like from Evil Dead 2, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Tobey Maguire's kind of an a-hole. No, he was always lovely. Hal's wearing chaps right now backwards. No, I'm not wearing pants at all. I gotta be free, man. So Toby was like, again, I don't know how other people treat other people, and you're never going to catch me in a Danny Masterson situation where I'm defending somebody who was an absolute prick. But if I worked with somebody and they were fine with me, I'll tell you that. But if they were awful, I'll tell you that too, within reason. Whether I think it's meaningful or not. The only time I think it's useful is if people shouldn't work with somebody again for their own safety. And luckily I've never really one-to-one had an issue with somebody like that where I witnessed something terrible. I was like, yeah, don't. Or the industry took care of it for me. Like I didn't have to say anything. Everybody got it. So, but anyways, so Sam Raimi does all this amazing camera work and all this practical stuff, and just like, yeah, amazing. And then I get the one lock-off shot of his career, just like a TV shot. Literally the least amount of camera movement he's ever used in anything. And I was like, son of a bitch. I just wanted something crazy. One day, I'll work with Sam again, no doubt. Because, he was vociferous in his praise and very lovely. How do I feel about video games? I enjoy them. I don't have nearly as much time to play them as I used to. Sometimes I play video games while I listen to some of the stuff I do for the show. Like if I have to listen to C-SPAN shit or whatever, and I'm watching for moments that I can talk about on the show, or it's something that's relatively boring and I know mostly what they're going to talk about, but I only need to pay attention if something shocking happens. I will play that while I'm playing video games because I would get so goddamn bored. Now I have a bunch of other stuff, especially since the AI stuff has happened. I've started vibe coding and playing with my robots and building stuff. So I'll do that while I'm listening. But yeah. Let's see. Assholes everywhere. You can't protect everyone from every asshole, but we can protect people from dangerous people, but assholes are just assholes. Yeah, Water Goddess. It's just part of it, right? Didn't you used to play video games with Rob Glenn? Nope. We nerded out about AI. That show started because of the conversations he and I were having about where this stuff was going and how nobody was talking about this properly. Like they like play them with Cam. I do. We play Goat Simulator. That's fun. And what else? Sometimes Humans Fall Flat. A lot of silly games. And yep. Did you watch Trump Kiss She's Asked? Yes, I did. I watched all that stuff, all the gathering footage and that kind of stuff. And it was so. Better get cracking out Sparks. The field for 2028 people running for president is filling up. Yeah, I know. I benefit though from the fact that I will stand out amongst the crowd, anyways. Now, I'm not saying the same thing will happen to America that happens to productions if you don't hire me, but I'm not saying it won't. I really don't have any control over it. I don't know if it's God or aliens, but clearly someone is on my side. Yeah, Helldivers. Cam likes Helldivers, but I don't have two gaming setups in here. Thank you, Chris, for the angry emojis. Appreciate it. This is going to turn into an AMA. If you could play a character from Lord of the Rings, which would it have been? You know what? When I'm really old, I'd love to play Gandalf if they remake it. It would be really hard not to whip out my Max von Sydow in Conan. Comes a time when gold loses its luster, the jewels cease to sparkle, the throne room becomes a prison, and the only thing that matters is a father's love for his daughter. So, all right, I'll let you guys go. Appreciate it. If you play an MCU character that isn't currently cast, who would it be? Yeah, that isn't currently cast. I really wanted to do Moon Knight, and they really cocked that up. Whatever. There was some talk about me doing Werewolf by Night at one point. I had a meeting with Avi Arad a long time ago about that. But because I wrote a werewolf movie that's still in whatever varying stages of development shit gets in. So that's still on. I think, what, as a Netflix film, it could really work. That's all I'm going to say. But more and more, maybe if they, so let's just, like, who else? Rom the Space Knight. That would be it. If you could find a way to, like, show your actual face in how you emote about stuff in one form or another, kind of like Tony Stark inside the helmet, so you can see what he's really thinking. Because I love the story of Rom the Space Knight. It's very sad that these guys volunteered to become Space Knights, and they are sealed inside these suits forever. They will never be human again. I did not audition for Moon Knight, no. But yeah. Werewolves over vampires? Yes. Because werewolves are tortured, vampires are monsters. Still, just love to play a Dalek. Yeah. Lori, I think that's a great idea. You wrote a werewolf book. Excellent. I'd love to be. Yeah, Silver Surfer would be cool. But again, so here's the big question when you're playing a superhero. Do you want to play, I would want to play sort of the Batman side of things where you're a real human, or you at least get to show your face. So your acting matters, as opposed to playing like, the blue dude from Watchers, or if even Iron Man, which is fun, but most of his acting was done in a studio with just his face, except when they would have scenes where he's out of the suit. But a lot of the time he's covered in the thing, and he's not with the other actors in that regard, in some places. So what I think about the Tina Peters thing, relatively harmless. I mean, she should have stayed in jail, but she's old. She's not going to be able to do that again. She's not going to be a threat. She can tour around with Trump going, he was ripped off. She's full of shit. Yeah, Iron Man is almost entirely CGI. So what, like the series that I really got into, that I really liked, that kind of had this supernatural-ish, alien-esque thing about it, was Sugar. I don't know if you've watched that on Apple TV, but they only have done one season of it. And can I say, the best of, you guys know I hate fucking villain stories. I did a podcast this week, and one of the guests, who was certainly, in her mind anyways, far to the left of me, let's just say, and I could tell as she was talking, spoke a lot about how she liked vampire stories and stuff like that. And not only do I find that, creepy and silly, because vampires are cold to the touch. They're dead. So even if you think they're sexy from a distance, hugging them would be like hugging a corpse. Let's start there. And I know slow zombie versus fast zombie versus Twilight vampire versus whatever. It's still silly. But they're Thanks, Flannel. Uh, this fixation, like with the Joker and that kind of stuff. Like I thought Heath Ledger's Joker was fantastic, but as a broken, psychotic, evil person. And ultimately, I would argue that was the closest thing somebody's played to a real villain because it's very damaging if you stick in it. And anybody who says I love playing villains because they're the most fun has never played a real villain. They played a cartoon version of one. And this other thing, like where like every villain, you have to find what that person loves about themselves, is fucking bullshit. And if you don't believe me, go look at the interviews with any of the serial killers that admit to whether, like Ed Kemper is another great example. Ed Kemper, they asked him, what should society do? Can you be rehabilitated? And he's like, what do you think society should do with people like you? And he goes, death by torture. Like the ones that do come around to it, like Tex from the Manson family, they all come to this thing like, I thought the sun shined out of my ass and I was doing the right thing and I liked it. I liked what I was doing, but I didn't have this illusion that I was amazing. They were either doing it because it was a compulsion, not because they're like, wow, I'm the greatest. I'm so organized. It's just so stupid. Like, they fight it and hate themselves and then do this terrible thing. And then they, it's gross. It's grotesque. And so if you ever play a villain, self-hatred should be essential. Because most of these people, what makes them terrible is they think their gripe against the rest of the world is more valuable than someone else's right to live unmolested. Right? That's the biggest characteristic that they have. But the idea that like vampires are somehow like the whole True Blood thing where like, yeah, they kind of normalized vampires. Fuck that. It was a curse. The irony is vampire stories were about the curse of immortality. It was an anti-science storyline. The vampire, from the American Gothic and the Gothic writings. It was about what if we did live forever? That would be terrible if not everybody lived forever. And then you would fall in love with somebody and they would die. And then you would find somebody that looked like the person that had died and you'd need to possess them, but they wouldn't have the memory of who they were when they loved you. So you'd hate them and you'd have to control them. It's just fucking terrible. And American Psycho too, like is another great villain, but his crying scene at the end and the question about in the storyline whether it was all true or whether he was just losing his mind and none of the murders actually happened. That's why everybody looks at him like he's crazy when he visits these sites. You're like, you should leave. It's not because there was a body there and they helped him get rid of it and blah, 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 but because it never happened and he's just creeping everybody out. That's another great, that parallel is really important. Vampires aren't real. I agree. I'm talking about the allegory and the ethics of the characters themselves. The projection into them and around them matters. It's like Hannibal Lecter and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think some of you know that I have this issue with the Nolan Batman series, which are cinematically wonderful and have some great stuff in them, obviously. But there's one line that fucks up the whole series for me. One, I'm not wearing hockey pads. Fuck you, dude. The only reason you're not wearing hockey pads is because you're a billionaire. If you weren't a billionaire, you'd be like these guys, fucking carrying around bats, wearing hockey pads, dressing up. Those guys are arguably braver than Batman because they don't have any of the fucking gear. They don't have the bulletproof suit, any of that shit, right? So fuck you, rich boy. That was my attitude when he said that. I was like, they should have taken that line out or delivered it in just in a different way. Does that make sense? I found it like it's kind of like how Black Widow it's in the Dark Knight when he says that, right? So yeah, that's not a line that would come out, I think, out of the comic books. It was sacrifice. And that comes back better in the Bane movie, where they really get into that storyline, which really comes from the Frank Miller shit. But the whole I'm not wearing hockey pads, like fuck you, man. But that I've always said that, like, Black Widow is the bravest Avenger because she doesn't have any superpowers, right? And my question was, you gave Spider-Man a fucking suit, you didn't give Black Widow a suit? The fuck is that about? That was the part that always bothered me. And her sacrifice in Endgame gets me every time. Like, I cry at that scene every time. Hawkeye is a mutant. That's why he doesn't miss. The idea that he doesn't have, he's a mutant. He has mutant powers. He doesn't heal or any of that kind of stuff, but he's not like her. They made it like he's just average, but he's not. It's why he can fire like this and hit and whatever. He was always a mutant. It's silly. She doesn't have powers they were trained into her. No beyond human powers. And even the humans, for example, like Ant-Man and Iron Man, have suits to protect them and that change who they are. Yes, he's a mutant. And that was it's been a storyline multiple times. She never was. She was just trained, and that's what makes her brave. She's just a human being. She's like a Navy SEAL. You know, she's just the Russian female honeypot version of a Navy SEAL. She's just really great. Carol just watched Slapshot, an awesome movie. Oh my God, we've been watching the Golden Knights play. Don't get me started. Every time we're watching that, I want to watch nothing but Hanson Brothers after that. She's amazing. And that's why I love the character. And I thought they could have done a lot more for it, but Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne began our worship of billionaires. By no means. By no means. Bruce Wayne's a different thing. Again, an orphan. That's an odd trade-off. No amount of money will bring back your parents is a decent storyline. But in Tony Stark's case, he invents all of his stuff. He doesn't just buy it. So it's an inventive kid. He's brilliant, and he creates these things. He created the suit. He's an inventor. It has, his ability, even on a monetary level, just speeds the story along. It doesn't make it possible. He built the original suit out of scraps of missiles. So it's not about his money in that particular instance. And if anything, his money made him a terrible person, an alcoholic in the storylines and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, they changed the story in the movies to where he gets, blown up and therefore he needs this thing to protect his heart. When in reality, he drank his heart to pieces in the original story as an alcoholic. And there's an amazing fucking storyline where he goes to Odin and sacrifices you have to give something to Odin to show that you're worthy of getting magical weapons to fight this battle that they have. Is a great one in the comics where he sacrifices the most important thing to him, which is his sobriety. He opens a bottle of whiskey, I think it was, and he drinks it for the first time in forever. And it destroyed his heart. He had to build his own heart. So Tony Stark's different than it's really about inventors. Okay. Stark was pals with Elon. No, Elon was a hanger-on that he dismissed all the time, which I thought ultimately was funny. Hal, it's not like you to curse so much. I'll block you here, but listen to your radio show. Stop cursing profusely. No, I talk like an adult. It's just how I am. So, it's why this is a space for what I'm doing. But I try to curtail it sometimes. And I think I'm still in fairly radio mode. I don't think I've really hit it that hard. I haven't been F-bombing like crazy too much since the show, radio show ended. But anyways, I love the storyline about, Tony Stark, destroying his body with alcoholism and fixing it with an invention. And ultimately the storyline, the allegory that is the last two Avengers movies is man's anger at God. It's Thanos being the god. He can snap his fingers and you die. And that's our representation of the cruelty of a deity in this allegory. Thanos represents the hubris of God and the ability to snap away your life, right? And specifically, Captain America being worthy as a human being who was created by a scientific experiment, and Tony Stark, who builds his suit, was invention against the power of God. It's man striking back against the hubris of the gods. It's the anti-Icarus story. Fuck you. If we need to fly close to the sun to protect Earth and never all of its humans, we're gonna do it. And that was my favorite part of it, because if you really look at those two particular characters, it has a lot of meaning. And you guys know how much, like, I started as a more of like, because I liked Robert Downey Jr. and other stuff or whatever. I was primed to kind of like the Iron Man story, but I really fell in love with the Chris Evans Captain America, because he reminded me a lot. He was the closest thing we've had in a long time to Christopher Reeves' Superman. You know, the Boy Scout, the open-hearted, in spite of everything, still hopeful, still believing in humanity, right? And the willingness to sacrifice himself, because when he weighed 98 pounds and he was, he had asthma and all this other shit, what did he do? He threw himself on a grenade. He thought his last act on Earth would be protecting, in a non-war environment, a bunch of people, by the way, in his platoon that were kind of shitty to him. But he jumps on the grenade and says, get back, when he weighs 98 pounds, right? That's what makes him worthy, and why he gets the hammer at the end. It's why he has meaning. And like, I happen to think that story is beautiful in the same way that I'm much more of a fan of hero movies that require working out, and all this. It's why I like the Rocky films. It's why, the train, I grew up, watching a lot of martial arts films, and it was always about the training. It was about conditioning yourself. It's also why I like Black Widow in that regard as well, because you put your time in. So isn't Icarus actually Lucifer just said? No. Lucifer was a fallen angel. Icarus was a human being who made wax wings and flew too close to the sun. And again, that was a storyline. Icarus, the story, is about how dare you, as humans, try to invent your way into the realm of the gods. It's anti-technology. It's basically like a Luddite fairy tale. And a great Iron Maiden song, for the record. Thanos' death in Greek mythology. Yeah, and in the original comics, he does all of this just because he's in love with Death, Thor's sister, right? And he kills everybody to impress her. Yeah, Chris Evans' Cap was note perfect, the guy to aspire to be. Exactly. And that it takes a lot to write a character like that. It's so rare. It's so fucking rare. Because everybody's got to have this, like, do you know how many people, and I include everybody in the chat room in this, with rare exception, but most people get up every day and try to do the best for their family, and even the shortcomings you have aren't like anywhere near the kind of evil and dismissive shit that the Epstein class and Trump and his pals do. The idea that you would cheat somebody out of their life savings or cheat to get ahead is anathema to so many people. It's so much more natural, I think. And the example always is when someone is murdered by a single person. One person kills an entire family. Well, go watch any true crime thing. A person or two people walk into a house and kill a bunch of people, murder people. It's a terrible thing. And people will say, that's humanity. But look at all the people who show up when that happens to solve it, stop the next one, and protect humanity from that. The cops, the first responders, the forensic examiners, the judges, the juries, everybody. Hundreds of people are involved every time somebody gets killed that are trying to stop it from happening. That's the norm. The norm with humanity is that most people, the vast majority of people, if a car was, there was a car wreck and you saw it, you'd run right over and try to get, open the door and get people out of it. People throw themselves in front of danger all the fucking time. That's much more normal. And so you'd think it would be easier to write characters like the Captain America or the Christopher Reeve Superman, because it's aspirational. It's better than most of us are in those moments. It's who we, if we could be our best selves, that's what we would want to be. But those characters almost never get written. And it's odd. Maybe that's because it's normal, and because, if it bleeds, it leads, and the news is really about what ain't. But like, I can enjoy a piece of fiction if I know the writer is trying to manipulate me into siding with someone by baiting me into an ethical conundrum. Fuck you. I like to think, and I truly believe, this is not an inflated sense of self. I think most of the people in my chat room are like this as well, that if you were ever in one of those psych experiments where they said, you got to keep flipping this switch no matter what noise you hear, and then every time you flip the switch, you heard someone screaming in pain in the next room, you'd get the fuck up. You'd go, all right, look, I'm not going to flip the switch because obviously someone's getting hurt in the other room, and I'm going to punch you in the fucking face if you try to make me. When they talk about those tests, and like 60% of people continued to do this. Well, first of all, they were self-selected to do it. You were narrowing your group and excluding people to try and prove this point. But also 40% of them told you to go fuck yourself. And and everybody else who refused to even participate told you to go fuck yourself, which is again, everything's a subset of a subset of a subset of people. Tell you what's going on. I did a whole 2-hour show on the radio. And so they probably knew it was bullshit. I wouldn't take it, though. I wouldn't just assume it was. We need to stop making flawed, twisted people famous, make the people who go unnoticed your heroes. I agree. And, it creates this bizarre, and I'm always amazed, and this happens on our side a lot. It doesn't surprise me when the Ayn Rand crowd likes villains. It doesn't surprise me because it's in their nature. They brag about it. But it's very strange when people on our side of the aisle are like, quoting fucking Walter White or Hannibal or shit like that. And I know it's fiction, but the buy-in on that level of fiction is very strange. There's some sick people. We had a blackmail situation by a mother's friend to abuse her kids and even burn her own hair. Real sick thing. So the country is dealing with it now. Well, we're always dealing with stuff. Oh, thanks for the memberships. Appreciate this. I was going to do one of those AMA things, but I'd never do that. I would do it anyways. That's always funny to me too, is doing the super chat goal with a goal of doing an AMA when I would do it anyways. It's so funny. Yeah. That's my ass, I guess. But yes, but it's not a binary choice. The binary choice is what they want you to think it is. Well, I mean, like, we're not talking about the gray area people, just normal humanity. I'm talking about how they hoist truly villainous people on us and shrug. Yeah, I find it silly. And well, here's the thing. And I'm also, you know me, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, but I also don't have to like it. And I also don't have to just go, well, it's a show. Because the art, if it teaches you something about yourself, if you watched a villainous show and you're like, holy shit, in the opening episode, or in the beginning of the second season, this character watched a woman die and did nothing because it would affect his business. And now I'm rooting for him? What the fuck is wrong with me? I got to get my shit together. That would be valuable. That's where you have anti-heroes serve a purpose. That's, by the way, why the Penguin storyline is the best villain storyline I think anybody has done as a villain-based series. Does anybody watch The Penguin with Colin Farrell? You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The final episode. Because it's exactly that kind of bait and switch. Right? It's exactly the kind of thing where the guy goes, yeah, I made you sympathize with him and feel bad for him and all this kind of stuff. And then you're like, oops. He's truly a monster. That's Trump with the COVID ship. Exactly. Who in this fucking chat room would go, I'm going to leave people on a ship where they're going to catch a disease and die because it'll affect my numbers. I'll go from 63 people who've got COVID to 109. For real. I think the average human, even a good portion of Republicans in that situation, especially the ones who were clamoring about it, at the end, would have gone, no, bring them, get them off that fucking boat. They're all, more people are going to die than have to. We'll sequester people out. We're going to have to set up a quarantine, move everybody around. They're going to have to stay in hotels separate from each other. We'll monitor everybody, but we're not going to leave them on a fucking boat to die. Like, forget it. No. But the penguin, the cruelty at the end of the penguin is the true art of that series. Because it made you, if you caught yourself feeling sympathetic towards him, you realize that you were the asshole. The story of the penguin is not about the penguin himself. It's about the viewer. I like the Batman movies, all of them as well. And again, I enjoyed the overall stories, but like that was a record scratch. That line was a record scratch for me. I'm not wearing hockey pads line. If they'd have cut that those movies would have been perfect. They would have been perfect. So, and it was an unforced error. He's the guy. Yeah, he's the guy from Trump is the guy from Back to the Future. Don't get me started on the hoverboard fallacy. You know how I get. So few reality TV shows about saving lives and good morals. I agree. Because, you're watching, they're basically replacing sitcoms. You're watching trashy people be trashy. But at least with a sitcom, it was fake. You're mocking people like that, and you're writing it as such, as opposed to like, hey, see this asshole? We're going to put him on TV with it and watch him treat his whole family like shit. Like, get the fuck out of here. I haven't watched Invincible. The only series you watch is Death Note. Yeah. The Penguin series is live action. Except for Roseanne, right. But again, that was her being trashy too. It was her being shitty. The irony is that she's shittier in real life. They had to tone it down to make her likable on the series. I don't think the Roseanne the series would have been very good if Roseanne the character had a chance to sing the national anthem and she grabbed her crotch and spit while she did it, while she cackled out the notes in mockery. The boys, Johnny and I were talking about it because he's been watching it as well. I appreciated the quality of the cinematography in Watchmen, but its nihilism I found tiresome. Your husband's watching Slapshot right now. It's so good. I didn't watch Penguin because I'm tired of DC turning their semi-comic old villains into mass murderers. Yeah, well, that's kind of the case. It basically becomes a gangster story, but it's right up there with Scarface and all these other ones where, like, the number of fucking right-wingers wearing Scarface shirts and shit like that and say hello to my little friend, and that's hilarious. And, until he shows up and kills his own brother for his buddy for marrying his sister, and then fucking, it's just... And he's the drug dealer, for fuck's sake. Roseanne show was great because of Metcalf and Goodman, though, in your opinion. Yeah, well, that's often how the casts work. A lot of times it's a support cast. Look at Seinfeld. Jesus Christ, the fucking Stillers. He doesn't like anything, so this will be interesting. I like a lot of stuff. I beg your pardon. My husband hadn't seen Slapshot or Princess Bride until we met. Blasphemy. Princess Bride, another great hero character. He goes off and saves his own life by being the dread pirate Roberts, but dies for true love. You know, that's that in and of itself is just a glorious story. Rip Rob Reiner. Homelander is amazing. He's a terrible person. He's a terrible character. Punisher was crap. I agree. And the weird part about the Punisher, so okay, Punisher, as I loved, I used to collect, and I obviously still collect comic books. Certain ones, old ones, when I can find them to believe. One of the I used to collect the black and white Conan ones and the black and white Punisher. They used to do these, large magazine size comic books of the Punisher and the and Conan, and they were in black and white because there was so much blood that they weren't allowed to print them in full color because they looked too violent. But I thought the fact that the blood was black actually made it look more violent in those situations. But the idea, of course, is the root of the story makes their vengeance reasonable, and the idea was, that justice was denied, and therefore he had to operate outside the law in the case of the Punisher, because there were terrible people that were gaming the system and they got away with it and that kind of stuff. And if you ever saw the Punisher origin story in the original. I wonder if anybody in the chat room has ever read it. The original Punisher magazine size ones about how his family gets killed. And how he gets wounded and wakes up 6 months later and his entire family's dead. And he goes underground and just kills criminals. That's all he's doing. He's like Batman without the governor on it and without the budget. And it was more like the scrapper Batman. Like that was more like what the guys who were like Batman would have done. They wouldn't be wearing hockey pads. They were wearing bulletproof vests, and all that kind of stuff. But the old Punisher, the family they're in the park. He's just come back, I think, from a tour. I think it was Vietnam in the storyline there, or some other, he'd been on some sort of special ops mission, but he was done and he's just going to retire and be with his family. And then they're in the park, and when the daughter, chases after a ball, I think it is, and runs over. And in the park, these gangsters have a guy upside down, hanging from a tree, and they stab him. They're stabbing him in the top of the head as he's hanging upside down, and his blood is just running out onto the ground. They didn't just slit his throat; they're literally stabbing him in the head. It was Vietnam, yeah, and because this is I think it was late 70s, early 80s when I was reading these. And she screams. The mother comes running with the little boy, and he's right behind them. And when they come around the corner, they see this, and then the gangsters just shoot them all. They just kill them all and leave. And he wakes up 6 months later, and his whole family's dead. And they're like, we can't get these guys. They're too, they're too connected and blah blah blah. And he just goes underground, and all bets are off. It's heavy. It's not a comic book. It's fucking heavy. And so because it's so heavy, it's the violence that is shown in how he behaves towards these guys is justified. And the only person he endangers in this is himself. Later on, they would give him, like, in the fucking movies, in the earlier ones, they would give him like people who would help him with logistics and blah, 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 blah. But it was so much better when he was just a dude in a van with guns going around killing evil motherfuckers. Guilty as shit. Still a human being, and he could die. He was not a superhero. He was just it was a symphony of violence. Exactly. All the things, John Wick, all these other things are all born out of the original Punisher series. And the irony is the Punisher movies that they made were cartoon-esque until later. It took them a while. Bronson and Death Wish, very much the same kind of feeling. Oh, I loved Heavy Metal Magazine. Absolutely. And I was definitely one of those 14-year-olds who was looking like, is there any nudity in this issue? Right. But anyways, like those kind of characters, they're on a different scale than your kind of augmented hero or somebody who's bulletproof or has superpowers because they can dodge bullets and they can do other stuff. They don't have to kill the person. But in this particular instance, yeah, he lived in a van down by the river. Exactly. Why they make the series so complicated? It's just this modern psychiatry overrun, this fucking leftover Ritalin bullshit from the 90s. He didn't need, it's like the same thing with Batman. Like, he's got multiple personality disorder. Like, no, he isn't. He knows the value of scaring the fuck out of people, and he's using it. He's not nuts. He doesn't, basically rich and nuts. Yeah, the Punisher first appeared in 1973. That makes about sense because I was probably reading those in 1978 when I was 9 years old. I love Omni as well. The progenitor of Wired in a lot of ways. So when I yes, I'm an augmented hero, but I have not won my whistle ready. I just have this chip on my shoulder, and I always will, and because I cannot think morally of a reason not to. Yeah, Rich and Nuts is Moon Knight, exactly. I cannot think of a reason morally to be understanding of the Ted Bundys of the world. I can understand why psychologically we want to intervene early in a young kid's life if they're in an abusive situation, for example, to keep them from becoming one. But once you're an adult, it's your ass. And again, a lot of these folks, the Ed Kempers of the world and all that kind of stuff, they're not insane in the in the way that a homeless person with a fried brain from drugs or schizophrenia is. They have found a way to get their needs met at the expense of other people. So fuck them. I mean, it's like excusing Harvey Weinstein because he didn't get hugged enough, or Bill Cosby. Like, he felt so much sexual shame that he had to dope these girls. Like, get the fuck out of here. If you're over 30 and you're still blaming your parents for your problems, you've chosen to. You're using it as an excuse. Sorry. And if there's something biochemically wrong with you, that's true mental health. Work on it. If you can talk your way out of it, through therapy, I'm for it. Please. Can we see some cats? There's always a choice. You know how you can tell, Swanson? You know how you can tell there's always a choice? Because people make it all the time. There are a lot of homeless people that struggle with schizophrenia and all kinds of stuff, and they don't kill anybody. They only harm themselves. And those people are the heroes of this circumstance. Imagine dealing with the same kind of voices telling you to kill somebody, and they keep saying no. Imagine hearing a voice in your head that tells you to harm someone, and you say no to it. And it's just as loud as allegedly some of these other folks that do harm people are. Meanwhile, those same people are like, I heard voices that told me to kill. And they agreed with it. And then they went about the sane work of covering up the crime so they could do it again. So no. Fuck that. And I'm okay with having that as my standard. Right? Yeah. We should do everything we can to make sure every child has an education and enough calories to make sure their brain works properly, that has psychological intervention if they've experienced abuse going forward. But if a grown person is doing awful, fuck them. They can go through their therapy behind bars for the safety of other people. Other than that, I have no opinion. And next time we'll talk about the other part of the storyline, which I think has to do with writers who wish they were writing something else, writing superhero scripts because that's what pays the bills, writing stories about how the character doesn't want to be the hero anymore. They can't wait to take off the suit. They can't wait to stop fighting crime. They're cursed by their powers like a vampire with killing people. And what's the difference between me and the child rapist I just stopped? Like, get out of here. What are you even talking about? also for the record, most cops' mates don't badger them about working on cases. It's hard on the family, but they don't bitch about it the way they do on television. That's a writer's husband or wife. If you see a script where somebody's mate is going, "Why are you doing this? You're not thinking about your family. You're so focused on this case, but you can't." That's the writer writing what they know, which is the family going, "Why are you always working on your book? What breakfast? You skipped dinner again." I'd love to do a Greatest American Hero. I have an idea for one where there's a legion, not unlike Green Lantern, and I wrote a couple of years ago. I wrote a short based on a guy who finds a blue Greatest American Hero suit, and it has different powers, and he like confronts somebody who tries to who's got pieces of one because some person threw it away. They had a chance to use it and they threw it away, and it washed up. And this guy uses parts of it. He can't use the whole suit because he puts it on. It won't work unless you're trying to do good. But he found out a way to use the belt and other stuff to just make himself stronger and shit. And he becomes the villain. And they fight over those those kind of things. But I like, because the idea is that if you were bulletproof. Anybody, if you were bulletproof and you could fly and you could lift heavy things, or you had an Iron Man suit and all that kind of stuff, would you go fuck people, let them die? Think about that for a second. I understand you still got to sleep 8 hours a night in theory and eat a meal occasionally. Wasn't the suit given to him? Yes, because he was a good guy. And that's the idea, is that they leave it where you can find it, or they deliver it to you directly. So in this particular instance, this guy is led to a site and by a vision that he has, and he doesn't know why. And then he discovers one of the black boxes in the ground, and it's got a blue suit in it. And there's a message that says, if you choose to wear this, you will do good in the world. And he does it. So Donnie Darko's a messed up movie. Yeah, it's basically like the evil Harvey. I love that old show. It's the most realistic superhero show. Yeah, especially when the little kid teaches him how to fly, but he can't manage it. Misfit heroes like The Tick. I think those are funny. And again, that's more playing with the medium than actually about the hero aspect of it. It's a spoof on the idea, which is totally cool. Dexter's based on a fallacy, I think. I don't think memories from infancy can make someone a sociopath. No, but it's the idea that abuse, turns people into this. Again, it's the psychoanalysis concepts of the mid 90s that infused a lot of people, and those people became writers, and those writers wrote what they know, which I think is bullshit, by the way. By and large, write what you know. Yeah. Like, you mean like the person who wrote Raiders or Aliens? Right? Or Contact, whatever. I think the Guyver would be an interesting superhero movie to reboot. Agreed. Yeah. Again, that's sort of like the ROM idea a little bit. Yeah, Dexter, again, Dexter was Punisher in another story, and in another way. But it was also about intervention. The idea that you may not be able to take this urge, but you could channel it in a better way and make him not evil. Have a sense of that a kid's values aren't shaped, even if their knee-jerk reaction is violent. Their values can be directed because they're still a kid. In the 70s, they did a Superman where he tried to save everyone in the world, never sleep, but he found it he needed sleep and had limits. Yeah, I think that there's a value to that as well, about the humanity of it. And you would be, I think, if you were tortured by anything, you'd be more tortured by the idea that you can't save everybody. That was the story with his dad. I have all these powers and I couldn't even save him. That's what drove him. Right? And again, this doesn't have to matter. I'm sure some people can listen to song lyrics, and if something really untoward is said in the lyric, they're like, yeah, whatever. I like the melody. I just can't. Just not in my nature. And I don't think I can't imagine that it ever would be. And I certainly hope not for my own self. You guys know I also do that if I was evil exercise, right? When I'm looking at some situation where we're, especially politically, like if I was really awful, and this is how a lot of detectives, I guess, the really good detectives are able to catch bad guys, is because they try to put themselves in the mindset. Like, what if I was trying to do this repeatedly and escape from the comeuppance and continue to do it, what would I do? I'd have to do this, 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 and this. Okay. And in what order? Maybe I can interrupt some of those points and that'll get us closer to it. That's why sometimes they'll use the press, because it'll bring this person out because they think they want to be hidden, or they play on their ego and try to draw them out. That's them thinking like an evil person without participating in it, right? Depress the Peaky Blinders is over. Yeah. I enjoy Alfie Solomon in that story, but mainly because I just like the character, because he's so full of shit. But I have no illusion that any of those people don't have it coming. Man, and you want to talk about the right-wing response to Peaky Blinders? Go look at the videos on how to be like Thomas Shelby. That's what the incels are watching. All the same people that are watching Nick Fuentes and shit like that. They're watching how to be a fucking what is it, theta males, or I forget which one. There's some fixation they all have on, you won't be an alpha or beta, you'll be, and then they want, they want to be like Thomas Shelby, like American Psycho, like Nietzsche, Rasputin, Machiavellian stuff. Sigma, thank you, that's what it was. Yeah. Which sounds boring. Jesus. It sounds like everybody wants, who's that dipshit who interviews everybody, who pretended to teach at Harvard and is one of the most boring interviewers ever, but everybody thinks he's a genius. Yeah, Tommy's a wrecked alcoholic, exactly. And a chain smoker, Jesus. Speaking of song lyrics, I have a question about children of men. What are the mothers chopped liver? It's a phrase. And the idea is that in the past, anyways, men make men this way, and they would make robots and computers in their image. The children of mothers would be different. Does that make sense? Yeah, they're born of wires. They have no mother. And the men make them. The idea is that children of men are the worst things that men make, which is like weapons of war. If anything, it's sexist against men, honestly, if I really drill down. But the phrase children of men has been around for a long time, and that's what I was borrowing on. Yeah. Was Roy Batty evil? No, Roy Batty can't be evil because he's not a human being. He was stuck in a cycle. And he was, that was also, by the way, Blade Runner's another man. It's about man's anger with God and the hubris of our life expectancy. We're angry with God about our mortality. And so the replicants play that out in a much shorter period of time because they only have 4 years. So their anger, it burns more than humans who could live 80 and then go, maybe I'm over it. I feel like shit anyways, right? But you're asking a 4-year-old to go quietly into that good night. And again, they're a 4-year-old child with fake memories and the assumption that they will be mature enough with the power that they have. It's an allegory. The replicants are allegories for humans hating God. That's why he kills his maker. I want more life, fucker. That's exactly. Yeah, Lex Freeman is who I was talking about. That guy. Yawn. I mean, he's famous because of who he gets to interview, and largely because he's certainly not going to steal any of the interest and thunder from the people he's interviewing. Boring. Roy's soliloquy at the end crushes me to tears every time. Yes, because it's the cry of man about mortality. That's why you can relate. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I've watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10 howitzer gates. All these moments will be lost in time like tears in rain. Time to die. It's a soliloquy for humanity because of God's hubris of creating death with life. I just gave myself goosebumps just saying it. Do I have any powers, premonitions, or anything? I've had dreams that come true. Shockingly so. A couple of very distinct ones. Hal has the clarity of sobriety. Don't drag me into this whole conversation about the fact that I don't drink or do drugs or smoke, and people are going to get all mad. And monologue was supposedly improvised and brought everyone to tears. Yeah, it was parts of what they had discussed that he would say. They were trying a bunch of things. And by the way, they're running out of time. They had lost money. They were out of money on the movie. And the light that goes across his face when it's in slow motion is the producers. I guess Ridley Scott had allegedly, and this is the story, had locked the doors of the studio so they could finish filming. And the producers came down there to stop filming, and they cut the bolt that he'd put on the chain on the door, and they were opening the doors to the studio, and that was sunlight coming in on Rutger Hauer's face. And they used it in slow motion because basically, as the light cast cars, like, fuck, God damn it, we were almost there. You know, there's that kind of thing. We need another Disney cartoon remade into real life people movie. No, we don't. Cartoons can be cartoons, and that's okay. You know, and this goes to, of course, the idea that, you know, some of the best art in the world is not based on total artistic freedom, but on the constraints that are there in front of you, that you have to make do. And some of the greatest things have come out of the creativity of having to make do. That, you know, necessity being the mother of invention. I love Rutger Hauer too. You know what? I loved Hobo with a Shotgun, ironically, but also Lady Hawk. Love that movie. Love Lady Hawk. Blade Runner is my favorite movie, and my favorite anime is Ghost in the Shell, the original. And you could see a theme. Hitcher is fantastic. And another great example of a villain who hates himself. He's looking for the person who will kill him. That was what was great about it. Like, if he was looking for someone to stand up and finish him. It's really good. It's, I mean, yeah. I think C. Thomas Howell's best work. Hal finished his thought about Sugar. I love that show. Just that it was because of its sort of alien aesthetic storyline, I liked him as a character too. He has, if you look at him, he has a very, it's very in line with that sort of Captain America aesthetic, which is, I don't like hurting people. Don't make me do this. And then he's got to confront the fact that he killed somebody who's terrible, and he still feels guilty about it. And I so want them to make another season of that. Although it you know what it reminds me of? The second season would probably be like Time After Time. I don't know if you ever saw that, the Malcolm McDowell movie where he plays H.G. Wells and he uses Jack the Ripper hijacks his time machine and comes into the 80s. And my favorite part of that is where H.G. Wells is British and he's in San Francisco in modern time and he's trying to figure out how to eat and stuff. And he goes into a McDonald's and he's like, he hears a guy go, "I'll have a Big Mac and a large fry and a Coke," or whatever. And he stands up and he walks up behind the guy and he says, "I'll have a Big Mac and a large fry. Oh, and tea, please." Because he's British and he sees that they also sell tea. That was my favorite scene in that whole movie. How has Halen ever performed? We were in Portland. We should come to Eugene. I agree. Why would you reboot Ghost in the Shell? I wouldn't. I just said that's my favorite anime movie. Yeah, he refers to it as a Scottish hamburger place. It's exactly right. Like, oh, a Big Mac and a large fry. Oh, a tea, please. It's such a nice moment. It makes the whole movie for me. My best friend growing up, Kurt, loved that movie. We went and saw it in the theater, Brighton Park Mall in Frankfort, Kentucky. We must have seen it 4 times in the theater. And then when video cassettes came out, it was like the first thing that he got. Christopher Reeve did do a time travel movie. Yeah. And the time machine was very fancy. It looked like a Swiss watch. I know wealthy people that think shoplifting is fun. Necessity is not always needed for shoplifting. Agreed. Yeah. Ever seen Sinners? I have not. It just didn't catch my eye, and there's a lot of stuff in the kitty, and I wish I had fries or pommes frites. That's right. The lake house, yeah, Reeves and Boat, yeah. I generally can't get it. Like, it takes a lot for me to like anime. Yeah, Somewhere in Time, yeah. It takes a lot for me to get into an anime thing. I watched some when I was in high school. I was definitely more into like comedy movies, and like I've seen Fletch more times than I can even say. Sneakers is a great movie. I love Sneakers. Yeah. Redford and was it Poitier and who's the yeah yeah, it was nice. It's about like a group of spies kind of breakaway. Mm-hmm. Have I ever met Malcolm McDowell? I have not. Yeah, River Phoenix was in that. Yeah, James Earl Jones. Is this live? Didn't I see the radio show a little bit ago? Yes, it's still live. I just got onto a ramble with everybody. Aykroyd was in it. I think was it his idea? I want to say it was his story, or did he do one of the drafts? Aykroyd's original draft of Ghostbusters was way darker, and Harold Ramis, added the chuckles. They both redrafted it to make it funnier, and then there was a lot of improv too. Poor River Phoenix, man. I saw him the night he died. I didn't, I was driving by and made a really untoward joke and had no idea how real it was. I was driving by with my friend Dan, and we were driving on Sunset Boulevard. We were passing the Viper Room, and they were bringing somebody out on a gurney. And I went, another actor overdose. And I was, I didn't think it was true. I didn't know what had happened, but that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Oh, by the way, reason 3,755 why I've never done drugs. Yeah, David Strathairn was in that. Yep. And can I just say that River Phoenix's Indiana Jones as a kid was fucking genius? That he basically shadowed Harrison Ford and had all of his mannerisms down. Like, it's really good. If you watch that version where he plays Indy as a kid, and you learn that Harrison Ford's scar that he has in real life came from the whip the first time he tried to use it, and he hit himself in the face. But like even his like kind of eyebrows and affectations, he did it so well. Yeah, I just saw the gurney and them load in front of with somebody on it. Couldn't see that it was him loading into the ambulance. So yeah, in The Last Crusade. What a fucking waste. Just yeah, ugh. We played the VR Mind's Eye. I wore a Rorschach mask. That's cool. No, Harrison's not gone. River Phoenix. And it got the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles going. Yeah, I mean, he should have been it. That would have been so great. And it would have, again, this is one of those, like, My Own Private Idaho. Effectively, it was one of these things like, we're playing drug users. Let's use some drugs and see what it's like. Fuck that. I mean, it almost did Keanu in. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring you down. It's all right, man. You can't. We're okay. We've got perspective. The year I've been through and the people that I'm around are currently going through. My dear Summer, who's going through what she's going through, like, I'm all right. I miss my dad every day. But, the other thing that somebody, I was, again, on a show and somebody goes, it's like something just shitty about like our father's, hypocrisy is playing out. And we're like, fuck you. My dad was a good man. And, I wouldn't just assume everybody's dad is a piece of shit. Even if my dad had been one. Thank you. Thank you for booing me. It was a good save. I appreciate it. Yep, Stand By Me. River was in that as well. And Joaquin does some great work. He really does. But I got to say that, like, the Joker movies are just a fucking travesty. Again, like embarrassing, nihilistic horseshit. Sorry, Soulcraft. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for being you with hearts. Aw. Harrisonburg went to Maine East, I think, and hated it. All right. Thanks, Suze. Too many comedians gone to drugs. Yeah, I loved. Yeah, fucking Mitch and Greg Giraldo and even Carlin. Quite frankly, as a word on the street is that he had tried coke again for the first time in a few years, and his heart couldn't take it. I mean, he's old anyways, but still. There are a bunch of people who, like, newfound fame fucks them up. It's what happened to Rick James, arguably. Has anyone seen the train wreck to Corey? Oh, yeah, Corey Feldman's music. Yeah, I know, because as an actor who sings and plays in a band, please come see Nerd Halen next week if you're in the Akron area, the Chicago area, or the Pittsburgh area. But I have to carry, when I go out and do my music, we're all kind of judged by, Corey Feldman, Don Johnson, and whatever. It's just, yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman, same thing. I think that was another example of like rehab death. Where he was in rehab and he came out, he used again, and I guess either it was fentanyl or he tried to use the same amount that he was used to using before he went in, and that'll fuck you up because your body's different after you've cleaned it out a little bit. Eddie Murphy party all the time. I have a friend who helped animate that video, and the one he did with Michael Jackson too. There's a lot of little like cartoon work on that one. She did that. Yeah, John Candy. Goddamn. His daughter worked with us on Lab Rats. She's lovely. Polly. Yeah. Man, I saw there's a special about like near death experiences that was on, and I've spoken of mine. I was 5, so read into this what you will. But my sister has a learning disability, and she has a nervous disorder when she was younger that it's basically calmed down as she grew. Her physical body is, more attenuated as she grew, because that sometimes happens. But she would have these things where she would shake and her hands would move like this. And it's because of my sister that I learned to read when I was 6, because she would go to school for 2 extra hours for special ed, and then she would come home and play teacher, and she's 4 years older than me, and she would teach me what she learned that day because we didn't have a television set. Polly, I did say your name. So my sister taught me to read like a 10-year-old when I was 6, essentially. Like she would just, they used what was effectively what became Hooked on Phonics is what they used on my sister, and to help her catch up. And anyway, so she had to take a medication to stop her nervous shaking, and apparently it was a pharmaceutical. I guess it's the one time I have done drugs, if I have to admit it. My sister took. She had these little pills. They were shaped like triangles, little like purplish triangles, and my mom had to cut one in half, and she would take one every 3 days. She'd take half of one every 3 days, and they tasted like mint, and I ate 12 of them because I thought they were candy when I was 5. And I went into my parents' room, and my mom was like, "You were loopy." And I couldn't, I was throwing up, and I couldn't stand, and my eyes were rolling around, and I grabbed hold of the end of my parents' bed, which was a brass bed that my mom still has, and it became my bed later. And I passed out, but my hand didn't let go of the bed, and it pulled my arm out of the socket. And so I was hanging off the edge of the bed with my shoulder completely out of the socket, passed out entirely. And my mom's a nurse, scooped me the fuck up, and I was still breathing. They didn't have to do CPR or anything, but I was in bad shape. So she threw me into the Jeep, and they drove me into town right to the hospital, and they pumped my stomach and all kinds of other stuff. And anyways, I was in a coma for 5 days when I was little. And I very distinctly remember having this moment when I was in the bed in the hospital, and I was outside of myself up in the corner of the hospital room they had me in, and I could see myself in the bed, and this doctor came in, and I couldn't make out what he was saying. It was kind of fuzzy. It was hard to hear, but he was basically just shitting on me. He was like, another fucking, these rednecks and their fucking kids, that kind of idea. And my doctor was a woman that my mom knew. And so when I woke up, I was like, I told my mom about this, this person who came in and said something, and I saw them in the room, and she goes, "No, your doctor's a woman." And then we found out later that one of the male doctors on rounds had come in and said exactly that, and that I had seen him from behind, from up over his shoulder. Yeah, it was like hearing through a radio underwater. And my dad, because of my sister's learning disability, my dad was devastated because they were saying, I'm probably going to have brain damage. I might not be normal ever again. And I was a smart kid anyways. Thank you very much. And so he felt like, okay, we got to take care of his sister, and that's going to take work, but at least Hal's relatively normal in every other sense. And he was just scared that it had cooked my brain, and he was going to have 2 special needs kids, and the burden of that and all that, as you would, and the caring about, like, oh my God, my boy, And my mom, because she's a nurse and this is how she is, she's like, he's going to be fine. She just like all but willed it. She's like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. And the the only thing that my mom said, she made a joke at one point when I was, a few years later, that it was like old Beatles, new Beatles. Like before that happened, I was, I want to hold your hand, talented and bright, but very kind of straight down the middle. And when afterwards, I was like, Lucy in the sky without, I was just like a little more peculiar, although, and my Aunt Karen, rest her soul, she was the one in our, everybody's got somebody in their family who like, talks to spirits or whatever. I didn't do drugs. I ate what I thought was candy and almost died. So that doesn't count. If I knew they were drugs, I wouldn't have eaten them. So my Aunt Karen at one point started saying I was a walk-in. And if you don't know what a walk-in is, it's a spirit that basically, when somebody's dying, turns to the soul that was in the body that's leaving and goes, "You gonna finish that?" And they go, "Hey, if you're not gonna finish this life, do you mind if I? Because this looks like fun. I'll be this guy if you don't want to be this guy anymore." And they're like, "Yeah, I was supposed to be rich or something. I don't know what the fuck." And the soul that I had till I was 5 left. This is my Aunt Karen's version of events. That the soul I had until I was 5 had left, and a new soul came in, and this is who you're dealing with. that was her version of it, right? True story. Yep. Not a walk-in. That would have been very weird, to do that. A walk-in, a soul that, if somebody's in an accident or they almost die, and then they're like, "Oh my God, this person was dead," and now they're more full of life and all this kind of stuff. It's because a soul that was supposed to live was caught in the ethereal plane. This is, again, think what you will. Doesn't matter. This is the theory, is that your soul leaves because it was having a terrible time. And a soul that was caught in the ethereal plane, either a ghost that was trapped, blah, 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 in the earth plane, says, I'll just take it from here. Why let a perfectly good human life go to waste? And then they just swap out. Maybe they should call it a swap out instead of a walk in. But anyways, like Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, that's exactly right. Buck and bowl. They were trying to get my soul back in the bowl. Bullshit, you're a demon, obviously. Well, I'm one of the sweetest ones you've ever met. He ate half a bottle of Flintstone vitamins as a kid and grew 2 feet in that day. And you didn't even have feet before that. So that worked out. That's what happened to you when you were 4. Wow, Black Dragon. Anyway, so that was her take on it. My mom was basically like, it may have had some kind of an impact, but I was also I was super talkative anyways, so it isn't that odd. I was chatty and speaking in paragraphs, at whatever, 18 months, something nutty like that. So, my cortisone tablets taste like grapes. Yeah, I always thought that was a mistake. Just drugs should taste like shit. Even cough medicine. I'm like, don't make it cherry or anything. I actually didn't like that when I was a kid, and it was partly because of that. It's like, if I'm going to take medicine, it should taste like medicine. So I never want to take more of it than I have to. Oh, thanks, Stacey. But yeah, to help you turn pottery. Nope, nobody ever. Adderall is sweet like candy. It is? Huh. And the side effects are dreadful. Yeah. Walking back and forth from the fridge. That'll do it. I didn't know why this conversation came up, but why not? Your dog ate a full tub of Vaseline once? Slick. That's great. Obviously not constipated. The only part of all of me I remember was when he was trying to pee. Like, you're going to have to give it a shake, right? Love the taste of cough medicine. I had this, I liked Aspergum when I was a kid, and I was like, this is not good. Remember Aspergum? It was kind of oddly, it was like baby aspirin, kind of, but grape-ish. My mom had that when it was out for a little while, because they had samples of it from the doctor's office. Yeah. Drugs are yummy when you're addicted. I said, oh, okay, sure. So it's not really Tic Tacs? No, definitely not. I would argue that his Tic Tacs are bullshit. Like, they're like half drugs. Terpen hydrate with codeine is awful, and I'll never take it again. I've never taken codeine or anything, and you guys know the story about when I broke my finger. This guy, that little funky dude with it's got 3 screws in it, which they said I would never be able to close past there. And I was like, fuck you, I play guitar. Yes, I will. And I did. It still clicks and that kind of stuff. And I still, like, when I make a fist with my left hand, sometimes I'll tuck it if I'm fighting. So if you're ever around me and I start doing this, I'm tucking my ring finger in so my fist is tighter. and that means things are not good. True story. Anyways, so the doctor said, don't worry about the pain. We'll give you some happy pills. And I was like, fuck you, dude. Don't call opiates happy pills in my presence. Shame on you. Yeah, you understand how insane that is? Don't do that. These things are serious. You should treat them like fucking nuclear waste when you give them to people. These things are terrible, but they're better than the pain you might be feeling if you have back surgery or something like that. You sound insufferable. I am. I definitely am. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a colossal bore. But anyway, so when they told me that, I was like, nah, not gonna do it. Notice it's the everybody gets addicted to painkillers, but nobody's ever gotten addicted to pain relievers. I think relief is enough. Yeah. And some stuff's just gonna hurt, and it's okay. As long as, there's bend pain and there's break pain. Break pain means stop what you're doing. Your ankle or your wrist is going to be broken. This is what tap outs in UFC are all about. But bend pain, which means it hurts to move it, but it's not going to harm you. Do your best to tolerate it. Is my advice. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No, sometimes it maims you. A lot of people are maimed and not killed. It's not good. But emotionally, sure. I appreciate the thought in that regard. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. I really am. I really am. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Swanson. I appreciate that. Hit the like, share the show. Well, this is a whole different episode of stuff. We'll just post this as an AMA or something like that, and I'll get a chat room full of people, of Hannibal fans telling me to go fuck myself, and I'll go, all right, but you're the reason we got Donald Trump in office, because people tend to shrug that shit off. Can't do it. Sorry. Got to have some standards. And it's okay. You're allowed. Thanks for the Midwestern goodbye. It's been a while. We used to have Midwestern goodbyes all the time. All right, Candy, you got shit to do. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being around. I appreciate your eyeballs and your ear holes. You know this, Candy. So I won't take it for granted. I appreciate you being here, whatever. Maybe. And if I ever do this in future and you got shit to do, just turn me off. You can watch it later. Okay. It's fine. I will make sure it's interesting so it's worth the listen. But do it later. All right. That's it. And I apologize for the sexism of children of men. So that's, that's fair. Much love to you guys. I'll see you later. Song's a true story.